Hello, guys and girls, and welcome to episode 90 of the FReality Podcast. This is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. You can tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in central US. You can also check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Anchor. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or leave us a nice review on iTunes, because that would really help us out. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback during the show, please put them in the chat. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Now it's time for me to introduce you to the team. First up, this guy has been spending quality time with the family in VR this week, picking apples with his daughter for their virtual pet BOGO. Is, of course, Zimtok5. How you doing, dude?
Good, Mike. Thank you very much for asking. I did not expect that particular clip to go as viral as it did. I think last I saw something like 35,000 views. So thank you to Julia who posted it. If you haven't seen it, it's a quick little clip from one of our introductory Quest streams where I had to lift my daughter Jade up to grab some food, some fruit off of a tree, virtual tree, for this space alien dog. BOGO, which is a lovely app on Quest, and I liked it a lot. But a lot of people have said to me subsequently, having seen that, they're like, "Oh, that's so adorable. That's such a cute little thing." But also, why can't we have that on Rift? Because I don't know of any plans for that to be on Rift, and it's a freebie on Quest. So if you've got a Quest, definitely check out BOGO. And if you don't, maybe you can join the petition that's mounting online for BOGO to come to other platforms.
Well, I think a lot of Rift owners are upset this week and looking on with envy at the Quest people enjoying all these exclusives. But we'll talk more about that later on. Next up, the Force is definitely strong with this guy. He was summoned by Lord Vader himself and brought halfway across the galaxy just to solve a Rubik's Cube. It's, of course, the Rowdy guy. How you doing, man? You all right?
I'm all right. Yeah, I was thinking, like, who's it going to be? But I heard Rubik's Cube and I was like, yep, I know who that is. Yeah, it did look like a Rubik's Cube. You can't say anything else about that. But yeah, nice intro. I like it.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, I'm all right. You know, it's been a bit of a hectic week for me, but you know, we'll get through whatever gets hit at us, and then we'll see what happens. Huh?
Fingers crossed, dude. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Next up, this guy is in full Metal Gear mode this week. He's been climbing tanks and infiltrating bases via kayak. It's the Liquid Snake. It's Nathie. How you doing, man? You all right?
Spastic but elastic, as they say. Yeah. No, I'm doing fine. Yes. I've been spending a lot of time in VR this week.
Yes.
I don't even know what a simulation is anymore.
Yes. It's been a busy week for all of us, I think. I think it's been a busy 3 weeks for all of us. Ever since the first, it's been nonstop crazy, I think.
Yeah, it's like sleeping, waking up, playing VR stuff, eat while doing so, and then go to bed again, and then it starts over.
Yes, it's like Groundhog Day, but in VR, basically.
I gotta agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, last but by no means least, myself, the host of the show, Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis. We've got a packed show for you today. We're going to give you more of our hands-on impressions, having used both the Rift S and the Quest a lot for the past few weeks. Some things we like, some things we don't like, some maybe problems we've just discovered. We'll be talking more about that later on. We're going to be talking about the new stealth game from NDreams, where you're basically Solid Snake in a boat. It's called Phantom Covert Ops, and it looks totally badass. So looking forward to talking about that. Zim's going to give you the lowdown on the latest releases to look forward to next week. Some excellent games coming next week, so you definitely don't want to miss that. And then finally, back by popular demand, is Rowdy giving us a Rowdy science lesson about why audio is so important in virtual reality. But of course, first up, let's find out what everyone's been playing in VR this week and their highlight of the week. And first up to the plate is Zimtok5.
Normally, I talk about games, but my favorite game of all is opening new VR equipment. So my highlight of the week has to be the fact that I've gone through now over the last week opening a Quest, opening another Quest, opening a Rift S, and actually I have to take my hat off to Oculus for the way that they've presented the boxes. Like I don't know if anyone else appreciates box art, but for years when it came, like when I'd open an N64 game or something like that, I remember still getting like Zelda Ocarina of Time and having like a golden game cartridge or something and just being like so overwhelmed with excitement. And like these boxes, for some reason, the way they did the kind of chromatic gradient with the headsets and the lighting on the headsets. Oh man, it's so good. And just opening the boxes, and I just want to keep the boxes like pristine and like in good condition, because I had a problem when I opened my PSVR. I was a little bit excited and I tore the box. And it's like I was being so careful, but still I tore it, and thankfully for this one I didn't. So anyway, lovely boxes. I had such a good time. For people who watch my streams, they know, I mean, it takes me a good 3 hours or so to like unbox a product, but we do it in a real kind of svelte way, very Zim-like.
I've seen them. After 45 minutes, you were still looking at the box like
Wow.
What can I say? I'm a ladies' man. You know, can't go too quick. So, but yeah, I just had so much fun unboxing. Even the cable ties, the way you opened the cables, like, it just was so good. So, good job, Oculus. I didn't have a smell problem like I did back in the DK2 days, where like foam, you know, makes you want to pass out or whatever. So, my game of the week was undressing these new VR headsets.
So just interesting, before we move on, what have you been playing on your Rift S this week, or have you not had chance to play much?
Yeah, I actually, so I don't know what I did. I took a quick trip down to London, and I did something to my neck. So my neck's been kind of really bothering me recently. So yesterday I just kind of, I toyed with a few things on the Rift S, just some basic things like Audica and Beat Saber, just to kind of benchmark and see. And I was really, I know we'll go into this a little bit more later, but there are some things that I recognized, which I'll save for later, that like comparing to my experience at PAX and comparing to my experience at home, and this is the same for the Quest, certain characteristics stand out and you go, wow, I didn't know that was a thing, like for good or bad. So I had some time with it, about a day with my Rift S. But other than that, I don't know. I just love both headsets. They both are just, they're warming my heart at the moment.
Okay, well, look forward to talking more about that later on then. What about you then, Rowdy? What have you been playing this week and you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think my highlight is going to be Star Wars. I've been like also on the podcast that we talked about it. I've been a little bit skeptical about it because I was like, they're going to deliver an experience. How much of that experience is going to be a game, and how much of that experience is going to be more like watching a movie? But I have to say, like I actually had a thought about this, and I'm honestly thinking that it's the best VR experience that I have had in virtual reality in general.
No spoilers now. I haven't finished it yet.
No, I won't spoil anything.
Right.
But the way that they use the environment is amazing throughout the entire game. You only have, like, everyone has like a very small office space, unless you go abroad, like outside with your Quest or something, but you have such a small space that you can like walk around in usually, and that the way that they use that small space is just amazing. I think they start you off in that cockpit, and you literally feel like you're in that cockpit. You have those TIE fighters flying over, you have asteroids that are blowing up and stuff like that. So the use of that kind of scale is so awesome. You don't feel like you're in that small office anymore. You literally feel like you are in a spaceship going through space. No loading screens. I've not seen a single loading screen, but they use it really, really smart. By, for example, when you land on Mustafar in the beginning, you go through this like cloud of like dust and atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. You go through that, and that is basically, I think, their loading screen. And then you get punched sometimes, you go black out and you lose your eyesight for just a moment. And that's the way that they handle their loading screens. And I think that's just amazing how they do that, because it doesn't drag you out of the experience. It keeps you into that experience of being immersed. And I think a lot of creators can learn a lot from this kind of stuff, that you don't need to do all these kind of crazy things. But if you can keep a player being immersed throughout an entire game, throughout an entire experience, without the loading screen, using space in such a smart way, because you also have very narrow hallways, you have very large open spaces, and all of that feels just very natural and very well placed, and none of it feels like, oh, they're trying to keep me here, or they're trying to like make sure that I don't move past that border. It's very smart how they do it. Just in general.
Absolutely. I think it's my highlight of the week as well. Really, I played it as soon as I could, and like you, I was blown away by how well it was done. And I think what they do so well in this game that very few VR games can do well is an AI character that you actually feel a connection with. And the only other game that has done that as well before is Lone Echo.
Yeah. Lone Echo, exactly. But I even place it higher than Lone Echo just because of, I'm a huge Lone Echo fan. My favorite game, flat out. But I think this just tops it, even though it's shorter, but it's so well polished, and they use space even better than they do in Lone Echo.
I think the other great thing about it is because obviously everyone knows Star Wars, everyone loves the Star Wars movies, and this is a standalone story that is part of the wider Star Wars universe and is actually treated as a canon part of the universe as well. So it's not like a story that's disregarded. It's actually part of the proper series. And without spoiling anything, you do see parts that you're like, oh wow, I never expected to see this. This is amazing. This is actually part of the story. And then of course, you get to wield a lightsaber, and that moment where you pick it up and you just fire it up for the first time, you're like, holy crap, I have been waiting like how many years since buying a VR headset for this moment, and it's as satisfying as you would imagine it to be. And then
they do that really well as well, just how the lightsaber feels and like how you wield it, for example, with like deflecting bullets. It literally, because I've seen you play it as well, Mike. You were totally, I went even a step further by role playing, because I just couldn't do anything else with this game than to role play it. But when you were like wielding the lightsaber, I was laughing so hard that you were like,
well, that's right,
holding it in like certain stances, because you automatically start doing it as soon as you hold it, because you're like, this is what I wanted to do with this for such a long time already.
And it's so smart because you can grab it with one hand, of course, and just wave it around. But when you naturally grab the hilt, now I know what it's called, thank you, Zim, your hands attached like they should, so you can hold it with both hands, which is super smart.
It's amazing also how easy it is to learn playing this cinematic experience. Like the way it guides new people into VR is great too. So everyone can have fun in Star Wars Vader Immortal. It's not hard to play. You don't need to be good at it. It's something that everyone can succeed at, basically.
And also, like, if you're a newcomer, you could be brand new. It's got so many comfort options and settings, So, if you want blinders on, if you want snap rotation, if you want teleport, they're all there in the menu, so you can make it as comfortable as possible. You can even skip intense parts of the game if you really feel that bad.
I turned all of that off, though. I
of course.
The full-on experience, and I have to say, I didn't become uncomfortable a single time.
But it just nails the fact that, as Rowdy said, like, you feel like you're going to role play it. You feel like you are a character in that world, and you feel like the characters you hang around with are your friends, and that's what you want. You want to feel that connection, that interaction you have, And if you can pull that off in VR. It's next level. And I had the same thing, I was like, I'm gonna play it, but I was like, wait a second, I'm just gonna grab my Star-Lord jacket. I feel like a real smuggler here. I felt like this badass, funky, crazy dude that doesn't really know anything, but just, I don't know. Everyone, since the character doesn't speak, like the main protagonist, you can decide who you want to be. It doesn't really also try to force you to be something. No, you can just be.
That's what I find so great about it. You could portray your own kind of character on it, and not only because we're going to talk about sound later on and hearing in VR, but if there's one game that does it very, very well beside Moss, it's Vader Immortal as well, because the sound and the way that reverberations work and like open spaces and small spaces and just the music in general. I mean, Star Wars is famous for that kind of stuff, but they really do it well in order to provide a full immersive experience in this game.
Yeah, and I think, it's the #1 selling app on the Quest right now. It's around 45 minutes to an hour, maybe at a stretch. But there is a lot of replayability because there is a dojo there where you can hone your lightsaber skills, and there's unlockable items which are worth playing for. I won't spoil anything. To be honest, I just feel bad for Rift owners right now because, in my opinion, this should have been a cross launch. It should have launched on Quest and Rift at the same time because so many people out there got their Rift S this week, and some people bought it as maybe a 1.5 upgrade or whatever you call it, side grade, whatever you want to say. But it would have been nice of them to have something fresh and new to play with their shiny new device that they've just sunk $400 on. And then to make that decision, say you've decided, right, okay, I'm going to go for the Rift S because I've got a capable PC, which is the smart decision to make, in my opinion. And then you get it, and then you're looking on with envy at people that bought a Quest. That's a sour pill to swallow. So I do feel bad for Rift owners, but I do know it's coming to Rift soon. When, we don't know. But it's just a bit of a shame.
Even better, they should have just bundled it with the Rift S and just put Darth Vader on the front of the box and sell it.
Maybe.
But I think a lot of that has to do as well with do the developers want to do that? They might make more money if they actually brand it like a separate title. And also I think that there's a reason why it's coming with Quest and not with Rift S, because I think the future episodes will probably not be launched first on Quest, but rather at the same time.
I do think having exclusives in the Quest area and the Rift S is not a bad thing, but in this case, communication is key.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, as much as I enjoyed it, as soon as there was no point during the game that I thought, oh, this doesn't look good, because it does look great on the Quest. But afterwards, I was like, I can't wait to play this again
and compare
on the Rift S.
If you look at the trailer that they released for the game, it looks even so much more better on there.
Yeah, it does.
It's insane almost how good it looks on the trailer.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it on S as well, but I wonder if you guys, the same thing struck you. When I first got into the game, not to be the dissenting voice here, but the AI robot companion that you've got, I didn't find the matching between the AI robot and the model to coalesce enough to convince me that it wasn't just a person in a recording studio. They stood apart to me.
I felt the complete opposite because I don't know, in is it Solo? There is a female droid in that, which is Lando's droid, and it kind of reminded me of hers, and similar sort of personality as well. So I immediately gelled with her, and then there was a moment on the ship right near the beginning, and it doesn't really spoil anything, but she does a hand gesture like this. She's trying to explain a story to you, and she says, "This is dangerous. This is deadly. Together, it's going to kill you," or something like this, and puts her fingers together like this. And I was like, that must have been mocapped or something like that.
I agree.
Came across well.
The animations are well done, and I think because the animations are so good, it matches with the voice. If they screwed up the animation, then I would have been like, I don't know about this. It doesn't seem to be alive at all. But for me, it felt like this was an actual.
Yeah, but in Zim's defense, you're not the first person to mention it. There was a couple of people in my comments actually that also mentioned a similar thing. So I think it's just one of those things.
It was also one of those things where, at the beginning, at the beginning, I was like, okay, maybe not sold, straight off the bat. And then, like you said, as the animations start coming through, as you're walking through the cabin and things start to happen, then it gets better. But I don't know if it's enough to stitch the two together for me. And the problem is I do a lot of call listening and stuff like that. So, having studio artists, if it's not paired to the point where it's convincing, and maybe it's because it's a kind of a UK accent is why I'm picking on it, but...
what are you trying to say, Zim?
It's just that I'm familiar with UK accents. That's the thing. That's what I'm usually listening to. That's maybe why.
Or the introduction could have been better in a way, because it does start very abruptly, and maybe it could have started up in a...
I love it because the reason why I like that so much, I love it how we defer on this as well. The reason why I like it so much is because you get thrown into the story. The story was already going on before you came along. And I like that because there's a lot of references
I agree.
Back to for example, you pick up an item and do you remember what happened? This place. You immediately get the impression that these two have been together for quite a while. They've been in prison together, and they keep on picking up on that throughout the entire experience. And that is also what makes that like that connection that you immediately feel that should be there, that is there for me.
Can I ask one silly question here? Has Vader got shoulder pads on? Because he's got a wider shoulders than I remember him having in the movies, and it's like, whoa, dude.
The thing is, Vader is a huge character, right? He's huge, but you've never stood face to face with him before, and when you do, you're actually looking up at him because he is so freaking huge, and that is where they use scale so well. Like Vader's castle is huge, but also Vader himself is very overbearing, and you get that sense of dread when he's around, which is amazing.
I just looked him up. His true size is 1.90 meters, so he's not a small dude. Yeah,
I was actually looking over him. I was like, hey, dude, I'm from Holland. What's up, man? Hey, want to fight? Come on.
As Nathie keeps on saying, I'm an Ewok, so I was like looking at his knees.
Yeah, that's true.
But enough of us gushing about Vader Immortal. It is awesome. Well worth checking out if you've got a Quest. We'll be coming soon to Rift as well. But let us know also what you played in the chat, and then we'll pass it over to Nathie to find out what your highlight of the week was.
That would be a good side story, though. Like an Ewok infiltrates into Vader's fortress.
Yeah, it's my story. It's my story.
Yes. Yeah. That shows that everyone can reach.
Yeah.
Can reach to the stars.
Exactly. No matter how small and furry you are.
Yes. Yeah. So I played so much. I actually had to put my channel up so I can see what I did. So I played, of course, also Vader Immortal, Robo Recall, Job Simulator, and Phantom 2. And today I went to my family to play some multiplayer stuff because I got 2 Oculus Quests. So I jumped into Rec Room a bit. I played VR cards, Drop Dead as well. Yeah, super fun. It's just great to be playing multiplayer stuff. I still think that for me, Rec Room is a highlight. Last night I was bored. I was like, I'm just gonna grab my Quest. I'm just gonna sit on my couch and hang out with my friends, and that's so cool. You can just take it with you, play wherever you want. I know this never gets old, but it's like that moment of freedom. I'm like, hey, I can play here, I can play there. Like the setup didn't take that long today either. When I wanted to play with my family, I was just sitting at a desk, and my nephew was sitting on the other side. We were just playing together. We were playing VR cards and doing parkouring on Rec Room, and he was completely mind blown by Rec Room, by the way, because he's a big Nintendo fan, and Rec Room has that vibe of so he was like, wow. And he's like, oh, can you do this too and that? I said, like, yeah, you can build your own worlds and share it with people and do whatever you want. I said, like, just jump into the rec center and tell me what you think. And I was hoping that there were no trolls in there, or you know what happens, right? But he was like laughing. He's like, what is this? He said, like, all these people, like, they look alive. They're actual people, because that's what they do so well in Rec Room, right? Like the faces and everything, it just makes sense. So we had fun. I said, like, wave at people. He was like, oh, they're waving back. It's like it's just it's not his first time in VR, but the first time playing multiplayer. Yeah. And I think multiplayer is beautiful. It brings people together. So Rec Room for me was a highlight once again. Although I do have to say that Job Simulator, they nailed it. It works great. It's exactly the same game. I do wish they. Environment. Yes. Well, in real life, maybe. Yeah. I was sitting on a toilet this time playing Job Simulator. It's totally no.
But Nathie, the point you were making there, like, is really, really cool. It's something that dawned on me this week. Is you can have LAN parties with VR now. You can literally bring your own device, right? You can have people 5-6 quests, and you could have a paintball match in Rec Room together and co-located in the same spot, because you don't have conflict between the headsets and the tracking methods like you did with others, and you can literally play in quite a small area together.
And I think the Quest is so consumer friendly that I do trust people to just have it for a while. I told my nephew as well, said, like, listen, if I'm on the road and I'm not using my Quest, you can have it for a while. And I think it's just fine because they know how it works.
And also, it's a device that you can loan out so easily because you just give him one back, and that is it.
Yeah,
that is it.
So
press a button.
So my highlight is basically that the Quest is a very shareable experience.
And also, like, talking about Rec Room and Nathie, because if you ever go into Rec Room and you see Nathie, it is like Beyonce has appeared somewhere on the streets in LA. Like, there is a swarm of people around him. he is like a megastar in Rec Room. It's hilarious to watch.
I can tell you, yesterday I wanted to give a big party. I was like, I'm just gonna invite all of my friends. So I was in this community room with this big mansion on top with a hot tub and all kinds of stuff. It was still
Maybe
Christmas
it's like
there.
Hugh Hefner in Rec Room.
yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, a Playboy mansion, that would be amazing. But then I was like, I'm just gonna invite everyone. But then my Quest crashed because, like, let's say if there are like 10 people in there, okay. But then there were some other people that were also on Quest with me. They said like, it starts to get a little laggy right now. I said like, well, see you on the other side. And then it just completely crashed. But imagine you're standing on this mansion, you hit that like invite system, and you see all these people like spawning in and making their way to the mountaintop. It's so cool. Like for me, multiplayer it's so easy to join up with all these people that I would never be able to maybe even meet in real life. And I think that's just great. So yeah, multiplayer all the way. I love it.
Awesome. What about the chat? Any good suggestions in the chat? Anyone else playing Vader or any other cool games?
I've seen indeed Vader Immortal, Beat Saber, Journey of the Gods. That was a VR bug who played that. I've seen Shadow Point, Paradise DK. Watto UK played Elite Dangerous, Project Cars 2 on the Pimax. He didn't play anything on the Quest because it was stolen by the courier.
Oh no.
Oh. Okay.
I hope you get that resolved quickly. That's a nightmare. But let's dip in some quick news then. And first up is Project Wingman. Now, this is going to be one for you high flyers out there, because you might remember a few months back, Ace Combat 7 released on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Now, the PSVR version of the game had an exclusive amount of VR missions, and we got to try them out. I thought they were really cool. It was the first time for me using a HOTAS setup with the PSVR with a flight simulator, and I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was an amazing experience. Couldn't recommend it enough. But of course, a lot of people on PC were super disappointed that the PC version didn't have the VR missions, and it doesn't look like they'll ever come, or maybe there'll be a timed exclusive, but who knows? I wouldn't count on it. No. But since then, a lot of people have been asking me to play like DCS World and stuff like that, and I do like the look of it, but it's like a slippery slope getting into something very addictive, very expensive, and very time consuming. So I'm still putting it off, but I might go and try that out in the future. But something that you might be interested in if you like the look of Ace Combat 7 and you're a PC VR player is this new game coming soon called Project Wingman. Now, it's just like Ace Combat. It's more arcadey than it is like a full-on sim, but it looks like a lot of fun. It has the same aesthetic, same sort of style to it, if you will. It's a 2D game, but has got a VR mode as well, and it's now on Steam, so you can wishlist it. It doesn't have a release date just yet. But this actually started life as a Kickstarter campaign. It did pretty well. It raised 100,000 Australian dollars and was successfully funded. They originally projected it to be released around May this year, so around about now. But the devs recently have updated the Kickstarter and said, look, we were very optimistic about our release schedule. More likely it's going to be later on in the year because we've encountered a lot of bugs and we still want to polish the game and make it super nice for when it releases. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw this one out there. Zim was the one that kind of highlighted it to me because I know Zim's kind of a fan of these sort of games. And when I checked out the trailer, I was like, actually, yeah, this looks pretty badass. Looks like Ace Combat, and PC players that maybe were gutted about missing out on that one will be interested in this one.
At the time, I remember I'd given the news in the releases as kind of a mistake, to be honest, because I'd seen that they were going to support VR. I saw that there was an alpha demo. I went to try to play it live and was like, oh, it's only a 2D thing. Well, feck it. We're going to fire up virtual desktop and go in that way. For those of you who have tried this, you can get a sense of what the VRification will be like when you do that. I've done that with a few games like Fuel and a few other ones like that. But the thing I have to say with this game, which stood out to me like more than others, first off, they do HUD right. Like they don't put loads of stuff in your face. You are in the cockpit. It is arcadey, so don't expect something that's like you got to fly for 10 minutes or whatever. You know, you fly for a minute and a half, and then you're there at your target. You do a couple of passes trying to blow some stuff up. The thing that stood out to me was the the rain drops on the window. That is so cool. When you're flying and you're inverting and all that, the raindrops react correctly, and the kind of physics of the raindrops, like screeching down the glass, and the way it occludes some of your view. Man, I can't wait for this. Wingman, I've just been dying. I've been just watching Twitter like constantly with whatever his name is, RBD2, I think is his name, the dev behind it. But for a small team project, this is like, it looks bloody savage.
Yeah, nice. If I look at some of like the moves that like the pilots are doing, I do think you need quite a stomach though to like be playing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that was the same with Ace Combat. You know, you were doing barrel rolls and stuff like that. People were saying they played it and they just couldn't stomach it, and that's understandable because it's a very intense experience.
And you need the skills too to actually, you know, fly that plane and
just like a real life.
But no, the other thing that's really important, like for people who got a Rift S, as you said, Mike, I mean, it's been a little bit of a disappointing launch for them because it's like you don't have that much to play. But with stuff like this coming out, this is another game, just like Assetto Corsa is for driving. You need horizon detail. And with a screen like what you've got on Rift S, finally you get that payoff of like, this is the kind of game where you can really reap that additional resolution and that comfort at distance.
Yeah, without doubt. Go on, Nathie.
So according to the chat, Recycled says that the special edition of the Thrustmaster HOTAS for Ace Combat 7 is only $79 on Amazon.
Yeah, and we got one, right? I got one. I think you got one as well, Nathie. First HOTAS I've ever had. Super easy to use, and it does add to the immersion because you feel that one-to-one movement and responsiveness when you're playing. It's super nice. Like, you know, I'm not really a sim guy. You know, I know Zim's dragged me into like races sometimes, and when I'm in it, I love it. But when I'm out of it, I'm like, just pass, you know. But when I'm in it, I love it. You know what I mean?
Like, imagine that being multiplayer, and you see like me flying next to you, for example, and you can wave at me. Just that alone. Yeah. So just like Zim said, there is a demo on itch.io now. It's just 2D mode in the demo, but you can get a sense of what it's like if you're interested. It sounds so weird. Like itch.io is usually these weird, dumbass, like indie, like these funky ones. You know, these clumsy titles. Like I don't know, Goat Simulator was on there once, and then you have this serious simulator on there. I love it. Best combination ever.
So yeah, definitely, if you're into flight sort of combat games and that's your bag, definitely want to keep an eye out and put it on your wish list on Steam for the future. So next bit of news is an update we had from Tripwire Interactive. This is the team behind Killing Floor Incursion and the publisher behind the promising-looking sneak 'em up called Aspire 1, which is coming soon to PC VR headsets. They've completely revamped the locomotion system in Killing Floor Incursion to line up with this new title that they're publishing called Aspire 1. Yeah, it's kind of a strange move, but I guess it kind of makes sense that they've got parity between the two titles. But apparently this new locomotion system allows anyone to use free movement and tweak it or turn it off to their desired or needed comfort zone. As part of this, they've also changed the way free movement system works in Incursion to be a full physics-based system, which replaces the previous one, which was relying on the teleport system underneath. So I don't know exactly what this means when you go and play this game, whether, you know, free locomotion is going to be smoother, because I know that we've had issues playing this game using free locomotion in the past, right, Nathie? Like sometimes you'd get stuck on rocks and stuff like this.
Yes.
So hopefully that is sort of, this update has resolved that problem. But yeah, if you're not familiar with Aspire 1, it's definitely one to keep an eye on as well. This one's been on my radar for a little while, and it's kind of on my upcoming hot list for PC VR titles. You're essentially a soldier remotely piloting like a deadly stealth Terminator machine.
Sweet.
You know, and it looks totally badass. So
sounds like my kind of game.
Yeah. Again, we don't really know when it's coming, but hopefully it's coming soon. We've got all these titles that are just coming soon. Stormland, Defector, this.
What does Sony mean anymore?
Exactly. But for all of you out there, to put your minds at rest, that did buy a Rift S and you're feeling a bit sad at the moment, I understand. You've got these awesome titles to look forward to, and when they drop, It's going to be the other way around. The Quest owners will be the envy of you.
Well, guess who's going to try Aspire 1 at E3?
Tell me more.
Is it
That's
Rowdy?
me.
It's Rowdy, right?
Rowdy, yeah. So I will be able to give you a first-hand scoop of this mysterious locomotion system that everyone will be able to use. That sounds like magic to me. Have you guys ever tried a locomotion system that is for everyone?
Not a free locomotion system, no. So
No.
intriguing. But, the developers are getting better and better at making these games more comfortable to play. So,
maybe the Flappy Bird one. Maybe that's the only locomotion option that everyone knows how to use.
Maybe. So when you go to E3, are you going to be part of the show to sort of report back your findings from stuff you tried out on the show floor?
Of course,
Awesome.
yes.
Awesome. Reporting live from E3, that's what I want to do.
Live with this microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
And then interviewing people awkwardly.
Randomly, yeah. How was that?
Randomly.
Yeah.
Hey,
Have you heard of FReality?
Or getting them straight as they come out of a headset, and then everyone says that everything's marvelous, regardless of what they played, because they're just so mind blown about things.
No,
The
we
headset
should.
doesn't work. It was amazing. It was amazing.
No, they take off the headset, and then we have this live connection with you all, sitting in the studio. And then it's like, yeah, but the resolution, it's bad. Like, have you tried this? And then I here, try this one. It's like, whoa, yeah, this is way better.
But how did you find the screen door effect? And what is screen door effect?
Yeah, you should actually ask that stuff.
What is your IPD?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, wow.
So let's move on then. Next bit of quick news is an interesting update from the developers of Rec Room. Nathie's obviously a big fan of Rec Room. The developers are called Against Gravity. We've talked about them a lot on the show previously about how they've got this awesome business model. Somehow they still are able to put this game out for free. So if you've got a Quest, definitely a title to download. But interestingly, they're going to be releasing Rec Room on mobile devices, starting with iOS, with iPhone and iPad. Now, this isn't
Are we sure that the developers are not Bethesda? Are we sure about that?
Yeah, they do that.
Next, I'll be like, hey, Google, play Rec Room.
No. Are we sure that age limit they have is going to still keep up with all these new?
No way. You
It's a
have
good point.
5-year-olds in there. You're gonna have even lower than that. No way.
You know how many 5-year-olds, Mike, own a tablet? You know that this news is kind of good news, but
kind
for
of bad.
some people, it's kind of bad.
3-year-olds own a tablet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I was going to mention that because obviously, if you've ever experienced Rec Room, there's a lot of kids in there. However, there is one satisfying thing is if you go into paintball, you can absolutely destroy those noobs. So, if you hate kids, it's also a good thing, So,
No, hang on. The thing that I don't like about the iOS launch and stuff like that on tablets is that there is no height. At the moment, if you're a kid and you're in Rec Room, you are by design vertically challenged. You show up, you're a munchkin, or you're Mike, but one of the two. So you can generally gauge amongst this sea of people, it's like, oh, that's an adult.
Yeah.
Over there.
Well,
I'll go talk to that person.
It's weird that I always felt like all these different platforms are not completely balanced out because I played it on PC once, Pancake, and I used my mouse. So I just 360 no-scope everyone because my mouse is still faster than your VR controller, honestly.
Yeah.
I can
True.
it's way, I'm sorry, it's still the truth. We're going to get to a point where it's the other way around. But for now, my mouse is still beating someone else. Now, with a tablet or a phone, I don't think that you shouldn't be that concerned. But I always felt like they still need to kind of figure out how to bring these together,
Yeah.
Fairly, yeah.
I never considered that before, PC players having a huge advantage over the VR players because you're right, you could play this on a PC monitor if you want to. You don't need a VR headset to play Rec Room.
No.
But yeah, they shared more about their details and their plans for the future with Wired. And this is really interesting. Apparently, the community creation side of Rec Room is completely booming right now, with 2/3 of all time spent in the game spent in user-created rooms, which have attracted over 500,000 unique visitors.
They don't even need to develop their own game anymore.
No, like the community is building the game around them.
And first, community rooms were just, hey, I have this maker pen and I can create a house or like a tree. But now it's like you can make game modes.
Yep.
Like last night, someone invited me randomly into a room he made. He said, like, you got to check this out. And it was like someone made BioShock in Rec Room, and you had these floating cities on clouds, and I could just walk around, and there were puzzles to solve. Like these community rooms went to the next level.
But this is the starting foothold of like what a programmer gets interested in. Like you start off. I remember getting into StarCraft use map settings where you could like define your own game, and you had triggers and set pieces, and like this is the kind of thing where in a 3D environment, you're gonna become spatially aware. You'll develop something like that. You'll get latched and get a community following you. We're gonna have game developers before long budding out of this soil pot. So yeah. I have to thank Against Gravity for making this model, because what they've done is they've built a formula, not just great game modes that they've developed, but it's a wonderful spawning ground.
I think in general we should thank every developer who opens up the mods, like Pavlov, of course Rec Room, but VR Chat. There's so many titles in where you can just build your own stuff, and the community in the end makes the game. Yeah,
you're right. Like the games that open community involvement tend to do super well. And that's just why, Minecraft did so well, is because people love building things and contributing and being part of a community. And if you can create that ecosystem and make it work for you, then you're onto a winner there. But Against Gravity, we've always said, like, how do they have this game for free? Well, what they're trying to do is
Russian mafia.
What they're trying to do, ignore Rowdy. What they're trying to do is they're allowing creators to enable you to charge people to pay with tokens to enter some parts of their environments or rooms, certain rooms. So you pay with tokens, which is their kind of in-game currency.
And this is the funny part. Like, if you played Sensar, High Fidelity, and some others, they all try to nail that currency in their, worlds. And with a stable community that Rec Room has, they can try it out. They can pull it off. And they have been waiting for that for a while. It's not like it just became like that. They're just slowly working towards that goal. And I think doing it that way is smart. It's very smart.
Yeah, like their ultimate vision is for VR and AR to harmoniously work together. And obviously that's a long way off right now. There's a big parity difference between VR and AR. However, by moving it to mobile and starting really early, they're going to be ready when that happens. So I think that's super smart from them.
This system, this monetization system, seems a bit interesting to me. So on one hand, you've got an open platform that allows you to develop a game mode or something like that, like what Nathie was talking about in the showcase. And you can go into Rec Room now for free from your desktop, from VR, and go try those out. But once you start slapping a price tag on entry, and you're like, I've created Zim's Camp Yard. You come along and you're going to camp out at Zim's, and it's going to cost you 2 coins. Why can't Nathie undercut me for 1 coin and just mirror what I've done? There's no kind of copyright law, so he's just going to copy paste what I've done, develop the same thing, and undercut me. So like,
but only Zim's backyard has the best hot dogs, so like.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know how you combat that in a virtual space.
I get what you're saying totally, but like, I think what the cool thing is here is that the cut of the money goes to the creator, so it encourages you to spend time developing something super nice.
In a similar way, they probably eventually implement a system as YouTube had to implement as well, because there's, we all experience this, that people literally take videos from our channels, download them and put them on another channel and get views and monetization off of that. Even more than I have at the moment. But the thing is, like, eventually a system like that will evolve if it gets used that much, or if those kind of problems arise. Because if that kind of stuff happens, if people start complaining about it, and if people start complaining about it, developers will have to find a solution. So usually those kind of things resolve themselves.
So in the end, Against Gravity is building a civilization in VR. Welcome to the future. No, they really do. They are just working on that right now.
Yeah, they are awesome developers. Can't recommend Rec Room highly enough. If you want to sign up for Rec Room Mobile, you can. We've linked it in the description down below. So if you've got an iOS-compatible device, an iPhone or a tablet, you can sign up now and check it out. They also stated in the article that Quest will eventually have platform parity with PC and PSVR, and will get access to Battle Royale and the Quest adventures hopefully soon in the future.
Good.
So correction, a civilization built by 5-year-olds.
Yes. Welcome to the future. Yeah. Welcome to the rebellion, Wade. Yeah, exactly.
So what have we learned? Zim sausage is the best.
Yes, that's a summary of the story.
That's the takeaway. Absolutely. Yeah. So last bit of quick news is Pavlov on the Quest. Now it seems the race to get a military multiplayer shooter on the Quest has begun. Last week on the show, we were surprised about the lack of a Pavlov or an Onward in the Quest launch lineup. But it seems the developer behind Pavlov, Dave Vills, wasn't given developer hardware up front by Oculus to get Pavlov on the Quest.
Story.
We knew that.
In total, like...
Yeah, it's super weird. He talked about this on Reddit, I think. I think that's where I originally found out about that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he had to order one himself, wait for it to be delivered. It came this week, just like everyone else's. And he started working on porting Pavlov to the Quest. And within, a day or two, he had a working build.
This guy has made one of the best shooters in VR and is not getting a Quest to develop with.
It is the most played VR multiplayer title across
the whole board. Exactly. That's why it's so heavy.
Every other single multiplayer title.
Yeah, but he just bought a Quest. He shouldn't have bought one. He should have just gotten one.
I totally agree. But you just don't know. You just don't know what goes on behind the scenes with these relationships. You don't know what happened there. I can't even imagine.
You also don't know what games Oculus wants to have on the Quest. Shooters are violent too. I'm not saying that that's.
I think
that's
the most played Steam VR title would be a good bet to have that on the Oculus Quest.
But Nathie makes a really good point there, because if you look at the shooters that are on Quest right now, you've got Super Hot, which is all polygonal. You've got Dead and Buried, which doesn't have any blood, I don't think, or very little. And then what else did I play? Robo Recall, which is all robots and sparks. And so maybe you made a good point. Maybe that's
humans, you mean?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think
nothing
so.
that could be tied back to a terror incident happening and then pinned to Facebook or Oculus. I mean, it could be that. But the other thing I have to say, because I spoke quite well last podcast or the one before about this kind of QA system and kind of applauding Oculus for that. But I have seen some fallout since launch where devs are getting excited, they're getting interested, they're going to Oculus and saying, hey, this is the thing I want to produce, and they're getting told no. And they don't get explanation. They don't get, and I've seen that, and it's actually kind of troubling to an extent, because I don't know how clear to developers that pipeline is clarified to them. Similar to, I would say, so for instance, if you're trying to pass an app onto the PSVR store, there's a series of hurdles, there's a series of quality requirements, but they don't seem to be as, let's say, hard-assed as Oculus is being right now. And I don't know if that will fade or if there is going to be something coming out to devs, but I have to say, for developers listening, I feel your pain, and I'm sorry you have to go through that, because we want to play your stuff.
In the chat, there are a couple of people that are nuancing it a little bit, though. We got Yingsin418 saying, to be fair, he had someone from Oculus reach out to him for weeks, and he ignored them. Also on Discord, Rip Fake said it's a bit more complicated story because Facebook tried to contact him. So maybe there is a little bit more nuance going on behind the scenes that we indeed have no idea about. I can't confirm this either.
Okay.
But the exciting thing is we got Pavlov coming to the bloody Quest. I mean, that's fucking sweet.
Well, just to touch on something you mentioned, Zim, before we move on, is that another title that I've seen fall foul of this system that Oculus has implemented for Quest titles is Loco Dojo from Make Real. It's one of these games. It's like Mario Party in VR, essentially. That's the best way to describe it. The Quest is like the perfect platform for it, if there ever was a perfect platform for it. They're now developing on PSVR, I believe. But yeah, it's really disappointing, especially when you know someone as passionate as Sam, who's the lead developer from that team.
They got told no.
Involved very heavily in the VR community, always talking, giving talks about his experience in VR, and then they get the door shut on them.
Well, why is it getting denied? Is it like maybe the numbers that it's not pulling in enough?
I guess so, yeah. Down
That doesn't
to
make a lot of sense,
sales
because
on Rift, but like you said, it's a different platform and a different
it's
audience.
a different platform, which is more of a niche than the Quest will probably be. So
This would be perfect for LAN parties. I love that game. We've had 4 players in it. It is so much fun. There are some really wacky things going on in that game.
And Brian Blessed is a voice actor in this game.
Sorry, who's Brian Blessed? I don't know who that is.
Like like the famous dude, Brian Blessed. Like he's the sensei in the middle. Look him up, Google him.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
You know what I want to say about this? Like the launch window seems to be a very serious thing for Oculus. They're dead serious about approving and disapproving things that come into the store. They don't want to have anything funky in there that might not be interesting to folks. Or no, that's not a bad thing. But maybe they should open up later to a game like Loco Dojo. And what I said before is that if they had more of a side thing like Oculus Share had, where people can at least also try out new things that are maybe not for the main public, that would be amazing, because this way
or like some guidelines into what does a title need to adhere to in order to get published.
It's just clear that the launch window, they said 50 titles. It has all been moderated. They came up with the idea of to have like so many shooters, have so many multiplayers, have this, that, and this to kind of make it the best launch ever without having everyone launching their games on there.
Yeah.
Like right now, let's be honest, the launch wasn't overwhelming. There's just enough for everyone at the moment. Of course, people already get hungry right now. Like David told me that one of his friends said like, "Oh, whoa, why aren't there any multiplayer shooters?" Well, there you go. That's Pavlov coming in, but it's moderated. It was a moderated launch, and there was no place for certain titles, sadly.
I think, to be fair to Oculus, I think the launch lineup was, in my opinion, pretty stellar. I think they did an amazing job, and I think I do agree with moderation, but it's just a shame when you see some of these titles that I wouldn't regard as shovelware and would deserve to be on the store don't get through. And I think, we talked about the application process. Now you've basically got to pitch your idea to Oculus, and then you get assigned an Oculus representative and you talk it through them and develop it together, basically. But I think they developed it before they knew. So the game was actually finished. I think, from what I understand, the game is fairly finished. But it was at the last hurdle that they shut the door on them, and I think that's a really disappointing story to hear. But to go back to Pavlov, I actually tried it today, just before the show on Quest, because you can actually sideload the alpha version. It's an open alpha the devs have put out. We've put a link to it in the description down below, by the way. So if you know how to sideload applications on your Quest, you can sideload it, try it out for free. I just tried it out in the shooting range. There's basically a gun rack behind you. You can choose all the different weapons, check them out on the shooting range. And weapon handling felt great, reloading felt great. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Of course, it was like a small demo, but did you feel like the Quest was working overtime to make it run? Like for me, when I play Rec Room, I just noticed that the Quest is almost overclocking itself to make the magic happen.
So it wasn't in a multiplayer environment, and we know from playing Go titles in multiplayer environments that that's kind of the thing that puts it under a lot of pressure and caused a lot of Goes to overheat. I've never experienced that on the Quest yet, so that would be super interesting if that happens. But yeah, it was just in a shooting range, so no other players around. But yeah, it's a solid start. I think the lining up the sights and taking a shot, the shots were off, but of course this is like super alpha early version, so you can't really complain. But I'm just hyped.
That wasn't you, Mike.
Coming.
No, that wasn't your aim. Wasn't your aim,
dude. Please.
So I especially for Zim and for the chat who's been talking about it, I looked up who Brian Blast exactly is and what movies that he plays. So he's a British actor. So you should know him. He played Flash Gordon. He played in Flash Gordon. He didn't play Flash Gordon. He played in Star Wars Episode 1. He played in Tarzan, 1999, and Alexander. And more movies, but those are like the most famous movies. You'll definitely know him once you see him.
He looks like Hagrid.
With like Hagrid beard, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like
So-
a real life Hagrid.
Wait. So you're saying that Loco Dojo is a part of Star Wars Vader Immortal? It's like a mini game that we haven't unlocked yet.
Basically, you're putting conspiracy theories out there now.
he plays. Who does he play again in Star Wars? He plays that big fat dude, like the AI character kind of thing. Was it the Jar Jar Binks boss or something?
The fish
I
guy?
think he plays one of
Oh,
fat-
the fish guy.
I
Yeah, the
think he
big
plays
fish
that
guy.
one.
I think so.
What was
Yeah,
his
that
name?
makes
I don't know
sense.
his name.
Nas, Boss
Yeah.
Nas, that's his name.
That's it.
Right.
Ah.
Enough of Star Wars
Gunga
lore.
King.
Gunga King. Right. So that is quick news done and dusted. Let's hand it over.
Was that quick news? Okay, well.
Yeah, that was quick news.
Very, very quick. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom,
It's because you guys start talking about
It's fun.
Gungan boss kings and stuff.
Yeah, why
Anyway.
not?
Releases. We
Go
ready,
for it, Zim.
boys? We ready? All
Yes.
right. So, cutting over to releases for this week. 4 titles. I've got we've kept it nice and varied this week. So, story game, horror game, action game, and a survival game. We got 4 for you this week. So, first off, this title is called 1111. This one really caught my eye. I thought it was very interesting, and I'll tell you why. So, the game is very similar, in my opinion, to The Invisible Hours, which was a title that I loved back in 2017. It's a multi-linear narrative experience, which means it's a story where you can jump between the characters, and you also get a kind of a god mode where you can oversee the scene. Now, the actual story itself is quite interesting. So I'll give you a little blurb here from the developers. So it says, follow six main characters as they count down the last 11 minutes and 11 seconds, hence the title 1111, of life on the island planet of Kairos Linnea. Their only guarantee for survival is a transport ship that will launch just before the clock hits 0, taking whoever can get on board safely to a floating ark in the sky. So this is launching for both PC VR and PSVR. The prices are a little bit different. So at the moment it's £10, just a little bit over 10 British pounds on Steam, and it's $16.99 on the PSVR platform. You've got these 6 different colorful characters. The HUD looks maybe a little bit heavy, but the story for me sounds very intriguing. And the trailer, for those of you who are here on the video podcast, looks like an exciting story. And I didn't hear about this one before.
It looks a bit like, I mean, if I had to like put like a title on it, it's like, I don't know if you guys ever played like The Longest Journey or like Dreamfall Chapters, like any of those games.
Journey.
Big fan.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of those kind of things a little bit in terms of art style, at least.
Well, I see an interesting mechanic where they rewind the storyline, so you
Like in
can
the
maybe
Invisible Hours.
you can make a mistake, and then change it up again. Yeah, I never played Invisible Hours. So.
Oh, you have to. You guys have to. At some point, I know this is going to be a very busy summer if you have not played The Invisible Hours, and I say this to anybody else out there. It's such an amazing piece of theater, presented in a way that you cannot have in a medium that's not VR. It's incredible, and the voice acting and everything in that, amazing. I mean, it was so successful. The writer's been picked up by the Valve team. Rob Yescom has been picked up by the Valve team for secret VR projects. And this is the guy who did Rime as well and Farpoint. Good stories, But this one has sci-fi backing and is done up by the NBC Universal development studio.
Wow.
So this has like some proper backing. So for a tenner or 17 quid on PSVR, I'd say give it a go. There you go. That's the first one. Any other thoughts, lads, before I move on?
Well, yeah.
This was a horror game, right?
This is the story game.
I have one. I'm surprised they launched it this week. I'm surprised by anyone who launches a game that is not on Quest or Rift S.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, marketing-wise, it doesn't pop that well under all that heavy news.
Yeah, it could get totally buried. Well, that's why I wanted to mention. So this is out. I didn't mention the launch date. Sorry, the 23rd of May. So this is actually already out. You can buy this now. So
and Rime is free on Epic.
Rime is free on Epic, and I need to play that because it's meant to be really good with a really heartbreaking ending. But anyway, I don't know. Next title. Shall we move on to horror? This one we've talked quite a bit about. This will be of no surprise to any of you, I'd say. Five Nights at Freddy's. Help Wanted. So what a good subtitle for them to have picked, eh? Good old Steel Wool Studios. A little story game for us, popping on the 28th of May. I haven't yet seen a price for it, but apparently, again, dropping both on PSVR and PCVR. They originally delayed it a week for, again, marketing reasons, back to Nathie's point. And this is going to include the classic scenes from the original titles, including Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Five Nights at Freddy's 3, Five Nights at Freddy's 4, and Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, which I'd never heard of before reading this text.
Wow.
You haven't?
Everything.
No. Did you know what that was? I'd never...
Yeah, of course.
What is it?
But there's like throughout the entire Five Nights at Freddy, there's an entire story like that's been going on. If you guys are interested in it, you should watch how's it called again? Game Theory. He delved into the story that is going on behind the scenes there. It's very complicated of like, what exactly happened now and all the cutscenes and all that kind of stuff. It's
so basically they're going to make a trilogy movie, going deep into this like deep story. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings, but in around a fast food establishment.
As long as it's not going to be Slender Man on Netflix, then I'm fine.
I just want to see a feature. If they're going to make a feature film, I want somebody, because I used to do this at Chuck E. Cheese's, which is a big, it's an American establishment, kind of similar to what Five Nights at Freddy's is based on, with all the animatronic puppets. Is you go in and you get your free cup for soda or whatever, and you just go orange soda, you go 7-Up, you go Pepsi, whatever, and you just mix it all, and then you drink that. That is like this special elixir. It is the secret to life.
That's basically how they make G Fuel.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to our action title, and I don't think there's a title out there that is gonna best this when it comes to action. I think this is absolutely kick-ass. Mike knows what I'm about to say. Blood and Truth on PSVR. This is a PSVR exclusive. 30 quid is what you're gonna pay for this. But my God, the mocap, the animations, everything. So Sony wants you to be the action hero, right? You take on a ruthless criminal empire to save your family in the spectacular PlayStation VR action thriller. The London studio described the game as a love letter to classic Cockney gangster movies and took inspiration from other Hollywood blockbusters, obviously their earlier dabs into VR action that we've seen as well. You play as a soldier called Ryan Marks. And it's a game that's full of epic gunplay, explosive set pieces. It's a little bit of an on-rails shooter, so I'm expecting it to be somewhat an action title that's quite simplified. But I think the story is going to be something there to write home about. The only thing that in there that I saw in the description that maybe made me go a little bit was to move in the game, players only need to look at a spot and press a button, but you are able to use the move controllers and things like that. So wreaking havoc against countless.
It's like how John Wick should have looked.
It does look, yeah, absolutely. That John Wick game, but the production value behind this is absolutely superb. There are some behind the scenes trailers and things like that I haven't shown today that you should take a look at, as I said, about the mocap, about the size of the production studio in London that has been creating this. It looks really authentic. The movement, as I said, for those who aren't watching the video, the movement of the characters, go look up a trailer. This thing sells itself.
Not a good reason for PSVR.
Yeah, solid. Yeah.
They showed off a gameplay yesterday on PlayStation UK, so that's also something to maybe watch.
Yeah, you can tell they're gunning. I mean, I love when Sony gun for it, but they are gunning for sweeping in more people who maybe haven't played PlayStation, because you can imagine the lads who are going to see this and go, "Fucking hey, I want to play that. Like, I want to be the hero." Looks good.
It looks badass. I'm so hyped for this game.
The way like people I've seen the gameplay yesterday. Like the way you open doors, you sneak through places. It looks super realistic. And it's PlayStation VR, so I can't wait.
I like the characters and the fluidity of it. It looks like one of those the Cockney gangster films.
It's funny. Like yesterday when I watched that commentary gameplay, someone was watching. Well, the person was playing, and then she said, "You look you look as realistic as the person you are playing with in VR right now."
That's crazy.
Yes.
Nice.
That's nice.
But yeah, if it's got references to like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and like Snatch, which are classic UK British gangster movies, then I'm so looking forward to this.
What was the film? You guys have to remind me, because this was an excellent film I caught on a plane heading to San Jose the other last summer. Was with the Cray brothers. What's that film called? Do you know what I'm talking about? Your man who's starring in it is He
plays both the brothers.
He plays both the brothers, and he does a bloody amazing job.
Tom Hardy. He plays both the brothers.
So look up. I don't remember the Legend. Legend.
Cray.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah, he plays
film.
both Cray brothers, and it's
you have to see
Good
that.
movie.
Like in the run up to playing this, watch that film. You will.
I'm
enter
a huge
pumped.
Tom Hardy fan. Yeah.
Legend. That is a great. Okay, last one, and this is my favorite of the list. Why? Because it's underwater. You guys know I love Subnautica. So when I saw this one drop by Arcyac, I had to get excited. It was the kind of thing that definitely got my blood pumping. So this is Freediver Triton Down, which when you first see it, I think you just remember scenes from Titanic when Jack and whatever that lady's name, Kate Winslet's character, when they were drowning in the Titanic. So this is a game which reminds me. This is a survival game essentially, and it reminds me so intently of certain parts of Subnautica. But the visual fidelity of the game is amazing. It's kind of got an escape room side to it as well, because you're having to manage the most precious resource, which is the breath in your lungs. You're submerged underwater. You're diving between different rooms. You're trying to sort out puzzles. It's like all these films that we've seen before, and there are a few escape room puzzles out there that are like this, and they have like water rising in the room. And I have to say, having played them, there's a weird sense that you get when you play these games. One of the things I did to help kind of increase the immersion is when I'm underwater, hold my breath. And when you're playing, I'd recommend people give it a go. It really does help like add value to the immersion as you're underwater and floating around or whatever. Because then you start to feel that panic of like, I really need to take a breath, and you're underwater and you're playing this game. So just to give you a little bit of backstory on this.
You die in real life too, so it's so immersive.
So immersive when you just turn blue and fall over. So let me give you a little bit of background. So it's a single player experience. This isn't a multiplayer game. And you play as Ren Tanaka is a free diver capable of swimming to incredible depths without the use of scuba gear. And obviously there's people like that who exist in real life. A close call on her last dive has kept her landlocked, but when her mentor, Dr. Lindholm, claims to have made a stunning discovery in an underwater cavern, Ren decides to return to the deep. Plunge into VR on a capsizing research ship, the Triton, hence the title Triton Down, where survival means outmaneuvering at the water's lethal surge. Overcome underwater chaos and unlock your path to the surface, all the while protecting oxygen.
Why doesn't she use an oxygen tank?
Yeah, well, I guess it wasn't planned that the ship was going to go down.
Why doesn't she just ride a shark on the water?
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
Like a megalodon.
This is definitely not the story game.
I'm really looking forward to trying this one out, actually, because we'll be talking more about this later on, of course, why. But, there's a lack of PCVR titles coming out and stuff like that. I saw this, and it looks super polished, and I was like, looks like a lot of fun. And although I wasn't a huge fan of Arcyaac's original game, which was Evasion, it was a shooter, a sci-fi shooter.
Oh, yeah, Evasion.
I wasn't a big fan of that game. However, this one does look really good, so I'm looking forward to trying that out this week. So hopefully we'll talk about it on next week's show.
Imagine those mechanics you see in that trailer in Subnautica, Zim and Rowdy.
Oh, I know. I've wished for them.
If I get hands in Subnautica, then
he's happy. I just want the new Subnautica in VR. Anyway, like we got No Man's Sky coming. I've bought it. I'm ready. Anyway, so that's our 4 for this week. That was a story game, a horror game, an action, and survival. I don't know the price of Freediver Triton Down, so I'm waiting on that. But it's landing 30th of May.
Okay.
Awesome.
There you go.
Some amazing titles to look forward to next week. Amazing titles.
Empty
Very
your
exciting.
wallets.
Exactly. If they're not empty already.
Yes.
So let's talk about Quest and Rift S, because we've all had hands-on with these devices now in some capacity, some longer than others. But overall, I just kind of wanted to do a little roundtable about some things we found out with our experience with these headsets, some things that are good, maybe some tips and tricks that you could recommend, and sort of just have a little chat about it, basically. Kind of informal, no structure, but let's just sort of go for it. And maybe we could talk about the Quest first, because I think overall, I get the feeling generally that most people are pretty happy with everything the Quest has to offer. You know, there's some quirks, you know, in my mind, it's a little bit front heavy, but it doesn't stop it from being uncomfortable. I can still play with it for hours on end, not have any issues at all. It's a minor quirk that I just think, well, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
The audio obviously is what it is, but it's a mobile device after all. I can deal with it. As a quick note, I made my own Oculus Quest earbuds last night. This is how exciting my Friday nights get.
Oh,
so
I know what you did. 3.5 mil jack, and you did the wiring yourself.
Yeah. So I basically had an old pair of Rift earbuds. They look identical to these new Quest ones. Basically cut the wires and soldered a little wire to a 3.5 mil jack, and it works really well. And to be fair, it's pretty solid so far. Like, I only did it last night, so I've only had a brief bit of testing in Beat Saber. But next week, I'm going to be comparing those with like a proper pair of headphones. But the thing is, the great thing about this is, which trumps headphones a pair of headphones any day, is how compact this is. Like, you could chuck that in your travel case, and you've got, a really isolating audio experience there. So, the official ones are out for purchase now. And on my very brief testing, I would say, if you like in-ear earphones, maybe check them out.
Which you shouldn't. I'll get back to that later on.
I was going to say, Mike, I don't know if you've seen these before, but, a little 90-degree adapter for the side would help them, instead of jetting out the sides like ears, would help drop them straight down, and I think that would help you out. They're only about £1 each.
Exactly.
It's funny. I've been only playing with the inbuilt audio, and I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah, I'm going to retract my previous statement that the audio was like super disappointing, because it turned out it was, and I think what's happening here. That initially, where I've compartmentalized it now, gone through all the different titles, I'm like Nathie, totally fine with the audio on Quest, except for high volume in Beat Saber. It distorts and it sounds pretty poor. And I don't know why that is, but what I'm seeing on Reddit, and this is true on the Rift S as well, is it seems like their engineering tolerance for these units is fluctuating quite a bit. Some people are getting units that are very quiet, some are getting where it's totally fine, some are getting dead pixels on their panels. I mean, it seems like there's quite a bit of variation, and I wonder if they had to relax their engineering tolerances in order to meet the volume demand for launch. And they're like, we're just going to take the hit, and we'll give replacement kit, because that is a strategy that you can actually make when you're doing mass engineering. As you might know, Apple kind of go the other direction. So they'll manufacture 10 iPads and chuck 9 of them out to make sure that every iPad in the box is has a perfect display. But if you're Oculus and you're trying to kind of meet it in the middle cost-wise, makes sense.
I haven't seen that many people upset about Quest. Yeah. I've seen more people upset about Rift S.
Of course, like there's also again, Rift S, Quest, different audience. So audio on PC has a different level than, I think most people are fine with the inbuilt audio on.
I do have noticed one thing when, especially on like higher volumes, or if you don't seat the straps properly, I sometimes get like some kind of resonance between like some of the parts, which may sound like distortion to some, but it's basically not. It's just if you reseat the head straps, then that stuff actually goes away. It's like a crackle. It sounds like crackling. Yeah, but it's actually it's a resonance between like certain frequencies in the headset and like going there. I do have to say, like, I do find the Quest 2 front heavy. I'm with you on that one, because I don't know, maybe it's the way that my head is shaped or something, but I do find it getting more uncomfortably quicker than, for example, the general Oculus Rift.
It's the biggest downside. I feel like it's, or it hurts in your face or it hurts in your neck. It's one of the two, and trying to balance it out in the middle on long periods.
The foam doesn't help with it. Like I still find the foam annoying.
Well, I
necks.
Yeah, I don't find it heavy. I do think that there's like, before where you had the sweet spot on like the DK2 and then even into CV1 like was more difficult to find, right? I kind of equate it to that, where the sweet spot in terms of head balance, you can get it, but it's kind of, there's a nuance to it, I've found. Like the way I prefer it is typically you're following their guidelines, right? You sort the back strap first, you lock down the sides, and then the top bit you do kind of last. But if you can keep the pressure off just the base of your face, I find the balance to be really good, and I can run it 3 hours no problem until the battery dies.
It starts here. Here's where it starts to hurt, really on the forehead.
It's
It's not really the here that it starts to hurt on my face, but it's really the forehead.
Yeah, I feel like if I
more with the foam than the actual weight.
Well, the thing is, I also tried VR covers in this case, but I still have after an hour that I'm like, it doesn't sit well, and sometimes it moves too much where I lose the sweet spot, and then you try to put it tighter, but that actually makes it only worse. I think there was this one video that Remarcus did on how to, I know this sounds stupid, but how to put it on, and I watched it, and there are some tips he gives that are quite nice, because I'm not sure if you noticed, but if you have a Quest right now, like the front is flexible in a way, because you can tilt it a bit up and down, and that's like the key. I feel like if you can nail that, where it's maybe weighing a bit on your cheeks or the other way around, then you can kind of switch it. But I do feel like every time I play for an hour or 2 hours, I'm always touching it after a while, because I'm like, it's not.
But the chat figured out why that is, Nathie. They just said because we have a bigger brain.
That's it. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Okay. Of course, that's the reason why.
We just couldn't work that out. Yeah.
See, every negative has a positive in the end.
I didn't want to say it, but
every cloud has a silver lining.
So can I highlight another thing that I'm very annoyed with the Quest, and I'm sure this can be solved. So today, I took these 2 quests to my nephew, and I was logged in with the same account on both headsets, but I could still install games on both of them with my account. So I was like, I need to switch one of the 2 accounts to my brother's account so we can play, right? And I've been running into this issue before, so I wasn't surprised by anything, but the lack of not being able to log out in the Quest sucks. Because right now, the only thing you can do is do a freaking hard reset to log out. So if the moment you set it up and you're like, oh wait, I logged in with the wrong account, you're screwed. And you need to do the whole thing again. Yeah. And I don't know why that is, but it's weird, because you expect to, when you go into your profile, that you can at least log out or do anything. But the profile on Quest right now, there's nothing there. There's nothing to really do, and it's so odd. I've been like trying to Google this too, but Oculus doesn't even come up as one of the search results, because they didn't communicate it at all. And some people are wondering how to fix that.
So a lot of people complained about it, and John Carmack actually tweeted about it, and he said that using multiple accounts is on their roadmap in the future. It is something they're aware of, because a lot of people, like you said, bought maybe 2 quests, one for them, one for their girlfriend, their wife, their partner, to play together on the same account, but that's just not possible, right? You need a separate account, so it's worth noting.
The other thing, right? The other thing, if you're a long-time player, like I'd like to do a 6-hour Quest show, but I can't at the moment, really, because if I have an account with a game logged into that I've played through, let's say Journey of the Gods, right? And I'm on Quest number 1, and I want to just transition to Quest number 2. Right now, there's no way to do that.
No. So for me, those are like 2 downsides. It's heavy, and the fact that of course, but it's a software thing and can be fixed. But those are the biggest annoying.
I've got one. The fact that the Quest, this is where it loses out to the Go. The fact that the Quest doesn't like the dark is actually a big thing. Like I find it really like a really odd characteristic. Like it makes sense to me. The magic of the Quest is wonderful. But when you're like, I just want to watch a film, and I usually like my family be asleep, and I'd be like, I just want to lie in bed, and if I fall asleep while I'm watching this thing, then that's fine. You can't have it be a pitch dark room. You have to illuminate the room. Some people are looking at using things like the base stations, because there's an IR sweep that's given, it gives the tracker some, so you could actually still have it dark, run a laser up in the corner, and it's like painting you in laser light for the night. I'm not really comfortable with that either. You guys know I like my little tinfoil hat, but there are options maybe out there. I had to use like a little LED light just to kind of give just enough in the room. And the other thing that I'd say is having, like, it's weird, but for multimedia consumption, having two controllers, and there not being kind of an easy way to comfortably reset to lying position, and then have the two controllers that you're kind of trying to fiddle with on your couch or bed.
Are you saying you want the comeback of that one remote?
I love that little remote. I love that remote. Mike's just pulling it out now.
Oh, that one is so rare. That one is rare nowadays. That came with the first, batch of Rift. They got rid of it later on, by the way.
You can still use it though.
In Henry, for example, you can use it.
Yeah, but so for me, that was probably it. So I still would say that if now the one thing I have to say, oh my God, I ran a cool test with Oculus Rift, with the Oculus Quest, which is went to YouTube, checked out a 60 frames a second 4K video. The screen looks awesome. It looks really good on Quest. I mean, we know it's got the better res, and so it certainly beats the Go in that department. But if I was to watch, even just 2 shows of a TV series, I would still prefer the Go, which is kind of good for me.
In the chat just called the remote control. It is the porn remote control.
So I'm let me throw some more into this arena. There are some more flaws I noticed, or things that have something to do with performance. I think is that I had a few occasions where it didn't matter what game I played, I was playing it, and then suddenly it flickered. I was in my see-through mode, and then bam, I'm back, and then it worked fine again. Super random, no idea why it happened, but sometimes I feel like it kind of needs to I don't know, maybe reboot itself, and because or it's maybe the speed of your controllers that it can't catch up for a second, then it's like I'm confused. Where is my boundary system? And I don't know. Did you experience any of that? This small out of VR moment?
No, I've not experienced that on either headset.
I've had it. I've had it a few times. I mean, it gets a little bit squirrely, but then again, I am the laziest person to draw a boundary. I do this. I go like that, and sometimes it doesn't complete. Yes.
So honestly, it became so easy that I'm also sometimes like, okay, you know what? I need to record something now. Okay, hey, oppa, and then I'm just in there, and then it works.
But actually, I find that the standing default, it just puts you in a cylinder, which isn't too wide. Yeah, it's a nice little default. It's great. It's super fast, easy, and then it just works.
It's the one I spent the most time in, sadly. But yeah.
Yeah, but I just wish it would remember the areas that I've set up better. It kind of feels like early, when they put fingerprint readers into mobile phones, just at the beginning, and they weren't great. It kind of feels like that's where we are. In other words, the system is there, it's all ready, but it's just not quite intelligent enough yet. And once it gets there, it'll be fine. But for the moment, it's just every time I pick up the system, having to redraw my boundary is it's starting to get annoying. So
what about Rift S? Because there's been a lot of criticism, particularly on Reddit this week, of people getting their Rift S and being disappointed in one way or another, whether it's tracking or the display or whatever. I don't know. Let's start with tracking first. Have you guys had any issues with tracking on the Rift S? Because personally, I've not had any issues.
I haven't tried the Rift S yet, so
okay. I love the tracking on the Rift S. Compared to Quest, it's actually better, and I don't think people understand maybe when I say this, but I gave this analogy before. The Quest is like having an astronaut's helmet on, and if you go inside the astronaut's helmet, you lose your tracking or the controllers get sticky. But actually, I find it quite tough to bring the controllers that close where I have a problem on Rift S. They have a smaller. It's more like, I don't know, a Russian military helmet. I don't know what analogy I can use. Yeah. It's so close. So I think they really nailed the tracking. I've heard from friends of mine who have stocks that, like you, Mike, they went through the cycle of trying it out just by default setting and it being a problem, tweaking their setup, and then it actually tracking better than the original Rift. So a lot of people going through that cycle as well. But for me personally, I have not had tracking problems. I'm surprised. It's just like when I was there at PAX. It's like if I was, I would not be able to tell you I wasn't on a 3-camera setup. I couldn't tell.
So just to clear this up, like the criticism about tracking came mainly from VR enthusiasts. Yes. I don't think I have heard many. Of course, they're also not on Reddit. I don't even know where like actual consumers who are buying it are, hanging out. But I don't think for them this is an issue because there's nothing to compare to, and it's no secret that going from a Rift to a Rift S is tricky. It's tricky because there are pros and cons everywhere.
Yes, agreed. And I think it was always going to happen. Like the people were going to be upset with it more way, shape, or form.
Well, it's your upgrade in the end. This is what you have to deal with if you're in the Oculus boat.
Yeah. But I think for the most part, people were happy with the visuals. I think larger IPDs seem to be more problematic than smaller IPDs because I have a low IPD. So my IPD is like 59, around that sort of number.
Whoa.
And the sweet spot is like 64, I think, is the exact center. Someone like Zim, who's got perfect eyes.
Oh, hey, hold on a second. There is a problem. The problem is when you're adjusting it, they don't show you the bloody number anymore. And so now it's just like I have to fucking do it by visuals. I want the pop-up of the 63, 64,
it's the same,
or whatever.
It's the same on Quest. Same
Well, that's
story.
what I mean. It's the same on both of those headsets, which I miss. And I have to say that the nose flap, if you want to call it that, is incredibly effective. I've got a kind of a funny deformed nose. In other words, it's like off to the side, which means it's perfect for me because in VR that I can check chat and stuff. I do the nose peek thing, and that's perfect for me. But with this, I actually struggle because it's closing so much of the gap. Yeah. And it doesn't do it in a way that like pisses me off like back in the DK2 days where it's like, oh God, something's touching my nose all the time. And that was really irritating.
But Zim, there are like very professional nose surgery things that you can...
But like...
yeah.
But like this past few weeks, obviously we've been using the Quest a lot. I've been using the Quest more than anything else. Obviously because it's like the hottest headset right now. Playing the games on it, even the older ones like Robo Recall feels fresh again. It feels fun again, and it's an exciting and fun headset to use. However, now it's been like 3 weeks since I've been using it pretty much solidly. I'm kind of craving going back to PC a little bit to explore some more PC games, and that's why when like Freediver, we talked about it on the releases. I'm really looking forward to playing that on the Rift S. But the problem is, for some reason, when I went to fire up my Rift S today, I've just got an issue with Oculus. Like I've never had this problem with Oculus before. But basically, Oculus starts, it like has a little spinning wheel, it closes, and then it does that again on loop for like.
So the starter app, the starter app you're having trouble with.
So I think I've resorted to the fact of uninstalling everything, and I'm going to do a fresh install tonight. Hopefully that resolves the problem. But when you put the Rift S on after using the Quest for such a long time, you're like, hey, this display does look super nice.
Well, there's a lot of people who have said to me as well, and I get this urge, like to go back and play things. It's kind of like when you get a high-end pair of headphones, and you would like, I want to go back and listen to like all the albums and just hear those new instruments. I want to see the visuals, and I can't wait to play Assetto in it. Like I can't wait to try this in so many back catalog games, and I'm just like racking my brain like, what are the best games? Even like something like Hellblade, that must look amazing in the Rift S.
And another quick question, like you guys, because it was a big issue, especially when we first heard about it before getting hands-on with it. Yeah. What about the refresh rate, 80 hertz? Is that a problem for any of you guys? Do you notice it?
Performs so well. I have found it. If anything, it's performing better than my Rift.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'm gonna say about that is if you're not sure, buy one, check it out. If it's not good, refund it. That's it. Like that's the nice part of refunding. I had so many people asking me such hard questions about Quest Rift S, and I'm like, listen, buy it, check it out, use it for those 14 days or 30 days if you're in Europe, and then just refund it or keep it.
Yeah.
That's what I usually do with the stuff. I don't know if it's any good. Just try it. You can.
It's solid advice. And that's the thing, like, the Quest is such an easy headset to recommend to everyone. Like you can say, this is just excellent. The Rift S is a harder product to recommend due to its caveats.
Yeah, but I would still recommend it if you don't have it. If you say like I want to have PSVR and
of course.
I want to buy it, then I
But
would,
the thing,
I would
it's
recommend
the freaking internet. Every product you look for, it's like this one guy says like, yeah, nah, and then the other one's like, and then you're like, you have no idea anymore. And that's the point where you're like, listen, I'm in the middle now. Just buy it, and then you will find out what you like about it and what you don't like about it.
I think the only criticism really I have for Rift S is the audio. I think that is the only real flaw in my opinion.
The audio.
Because when with the Quest you can understand because it's a mobile device, you take it everywhere. That's fine, I get it.
Yeah.
With a PC, you expect more because you've invested way more in your PC setup and everything else. You've probably got a pair of gaming headphones. You know what good audio sounds like.
Yes.
So when you use the Rift S and it doesn't sound very good, you're like, that kind of sucks. But I do know that they've reported that they are going to try and fix something. What they can fix with it, I really don't know. But it'll be interesting to see what updates.
I'm really curious at your guys' thoughts about the original setup because I had to unplug my primary monitor from the DisplayPort, replace it with the Rift S's DisplayPort configuration, and then plug my monitor into a secondary port on my 1080. And I wondered if you had a similar thing. Like, that seems to be working just fine. I didn't lose any. I had an extra port on the card. It wasn't a problem. But what was your findings from like the initial setup when you plugged the thing in first?
I had the same experience as you. Like, it was like just swap the monitor DisplayPort over to HDMI and then just put the Rift S into DisplayPort. It's a really good point though, because I know that Tyrell tested. I think it was last week. DisplayPort to HDMI adapters, because there's a lot of people that maybe have a laptop that doesn't have a DisplayPort output and just has an HDMI output.
Right.
And at the moment, there isn't one on the market that we can find that works, basically. I've been looking into this myself as well, because a lot of people are interested in that.
we can't know why that is? Or what is causing that? Or
the problem is converting the DisplayPort signal to HDMI just doesn't work particularly well. It works well the other way around, but not that way around.
Not the full configuration, because sometimes when you do that, like you might not have a specific pin in one configuration versus the other. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to give an analogy. There was another thing that I thought was really interesting, which I wasn't expecting, and it's a positive, which is at PAX I remember very specifically experiencing the Rift S and thinking the color depth and the saturation wasn't good. But having had it at home now for a bit, it's totally fine. I don't actually notice it being, let's say, worse off than Rift. It might even be better than Rift, which is strange. What have you guys seen in terms of saturation with the Rift S? Because you had a little bit more time with it than I've had.
Personally, I think it's great. Like, whenever I put it on, especially when you've been playing with the Quest a lot, which I have. When I put it on today, I played a bit of Beat Saber. I was like, this does look super nice in this headset, But it's running on a PC, of course, like I'm running on a 28 Ti. Yeah. But, it is a nice looking headset, and I think for anyone that's bought it at the price, $400, I think it's a bargain.
It's a great price.
Yeah.
Honestly, my kind of summary position on it is a great replacement headset for what it is. And so for anyone who's, I think Nathie's idea there to try these things out and then maybe swap up, because you might be on the fence. Like if you've only got your $400 or $500 and you're like, which one do I go for? I think it's a perfectly reasonable strategy. Yeah. And a lot of people have actually said to me that they've done this with Quest, for instance, where they're like, I sold my Rift, I went and got a Quest, I tried it out, and I wasn't convinced with the library. Because I can actually see that. Like if you're a hardcore gamer and you're used to having like a full home, like Oculus Home library or your Steam library accessible, and then you jump to Quest, which is kind of a small ringed garden at the moment, there isn't a lot of depth there. There isn't a title that's going to really pull you through. It's a very wide lineup, but it's not very deep, and that's why I was kind of like,
even smarter. There are so many headsets to pick from right now. You could even, you try the Rift S, then you send it back, then you try the HP Reverb, you send it back, and then you try maybe the Valve Index, and you send it back. No, I'm like, you can only spend your money once. You can only spend your money once. It's a smart thing to do. If you could try it, like you could try a headset like one a week, and then make your decision in the end. You can, because they're like, it's a good way, because if you can't go to a store, No, you're right. Try them. So this is the only way to find out, besides everyone saying what they are saying. I think that's it's one of the trickiest things to do when you're...
How far are we going to take this though? Like you can buy one, take it back after 40 weeks, buy the same one, take it back after 40 days,
but
buy another one, send it back after...
Honestly, like you can listen to what we have to say, to what everyone has to say, but in the end, it's about you trying the headset. So sometimes it's better to just get it and try it yourself and not go on Reddit, on Facebook, Twitter, on YouTube to kind of get no idea anymore of what you are going to get into. There is one downside, and I have been highlighting this before. I think specs-wise, fine headset. The only thing I just think is kind of worrying is that there is almost no roadmap for content. Well, Quest, we kind of know, oh, this is coming, that is coming. Well, I feel like with Rift S, yeah, it's a handful, but it's not big. Yeah, and there are some on the box, but those ones that were on the box had to come out this week, in my opinion.
Those are
Vader Immortal.
Those are solid titles. Things like Defector and Stormlands and Asgards. I mean, those are all really cool games, and I can't wait to play them. One odd exclusion that a commenter on YouTube highlighted to me is, where's Oculus Home on these headsets? You can't.
Oculus Rooms, you mean?
No, not well. I don't think that's.
I mean.
Yeah, I mean the actual full desktop experience of. I mean, I suppose you can on Rift S get to it, but on Quest, if you're a Quest buyer, you actually have no virtual environment that you can create at this moment.
There's no friend system. There is no achievement system. There is nothing in that sense.
Yeah, so you're missing kind of a bit of parity, because I was a bit confused. I was like, you just download it and install Oculus Home, and he went, no, Oculus Home. And I was like, ET phone, Oculus Home?
I think it depends on how cross-platform Facebook wants to make this.
Yeah.
And how unique they want to keep these. Like, they don't want the Quest to look the same as what Rift S has in terms of, Oculus Home and stuff. They really want to make it a different experience, I feel like. So I think we're going to see a different...
One more weird characteristic that I noticed. The draw your finger in the sand boundary system on Quest versus Rift S is materially different. It's like the same kind of thing, but for some reason the animation is like totally different, and I don't know why.
Is slightly different, and the questions they ask you are slightly different. It's strange. It's strange. Yeah. Well, I guess the few people out there that would have both, I don't know, would notice that. But yeah, let's move on then, because we're running out of time a little bit. And Nathie made a valid point about titles, but we did get one title announced this week that is a very interesting one, and that's our next topic. We're going to be talking about Phantom. Now, this is a new title from NDreams and Oculus Studios. Now, NDreams are the UK-based developers behind VR titles such as Shooty Fruity and The Assembly, if you remember that one.
Love The Assembly.
And they've got a new game, obviously it's coming to Quest and Rift, called Phantom Covert Ops. Now, just imagine in your mind, if you're listening to this in your car, or you're walking around a nice, serene, quiet river. You pull out your kayak to relax on the river, and then you strap your sniper rifle to your back, your MP5 to your side, your silenced pistol to your chest, and you've got enough ammo and C4 to take on an army. And that's basically what Phantom Covert Ops is all about, because you basically take the role of this like elite operative using a kayak to stealth your way along the water to take down these key targets and infiltrate enemy strongholds. And hats off to NDreams for dreaming up this idea. It's freaking genius, because who ever thought that you would have a stealth shooter in VR that you're in a kayak the whole time? Like, whoever came up with this idea at NDreams, I just want to buy this person a beer and just talk to them and just understand their logic, because they've got a very creative mind.
It is, but it's actually not that uncommon though, because those kind of things are being used in the army quite a lot.
That's true. It's absolutely true. You're right. And yeah, basically you're paddling along on the water. It's a seated experience. And you're using your sort of armory of weapons and different things at your disposal to take down these targets, and you can kind of choose which way you want to go about it. And Nathie, you actually played it this week, right, on the Quest?
Yes. Oh. I actually played it twice. I played it last year, but there was this strong NDA, so I couldn't talk about it till now. So it has been like a long ass time. The first time I played it was on the Oculus Rift at Gamescom. And I played like 2 hours of it back then, so way longer than the demo that they gave me. And yeah, it's unique in its own way, that's for sure, because you stay in that kayak the entire entire time. Some people were wondering if you were also going to jump out after a while. No, sadly, you glued yourself into this kayak and you're not gonna get out. But yeah, like they came a long way, because when I compared it to the Quest demo I played, I was like, wow, they worked real hard on it. You know, they listened to loads of feedback from people, because they were, you know, figuring out how do you scope through a sniper rifle, for example, like how do you aim? And in the end, they went for, as I call the shadow core aim, is that you get closer to your sniper rifle, you look through that scope, and then it snaps onto your eye, and then you close one eye, and then you can see through it, and you can, well, take out your enemy. And as you said, you don't only have a sniper rifle, you also have this MP5, you have this what is it, like handgun,
silenced pistol.
Yeah, and you can decide to use these weapons, but you don't have to. Like Phantom is a game in where you can decide how you want to play it. If you want to go complete silent and not kill anyone, then you can, and you actually get achievements for that too.
Or just a kayak ride then.
Yeah. Well, like yeah. But then you can also decide to, for example, use your environments and shoot, for example, light to distract the guards, and then you move that way. Or you can go complete Rambo and just shoot everything, because you can see the levels like these red barrels, and you're like, should I do this or not? But yeah, there are different ways you can play it. Let's say it's not open world, but it does give you the idea it is, because you can go left, but you can go right sometimes. Yeah. So you can decide, how you play it, and that also makes it very unique.
Really quickly in between, I believe the devs are in the chat as well. So if people have questions for them, they can ask them directly there as well.
Awesome. But yeah, I played the demo on Quest as well, same one that you played, Nathie. But like you say, you can play it whichever way you want. So I did kind of first go in like really stealthy. You know, I was like, and you kayak like this. So and when you're sitting down, it feels really funny and it feels right. And then there was like an enemy patrol boat coming. So I sort of like paddled over to the reeds and waited out in the reeds. And then you sort of paddle back out again. And then at first I was like taking out the lights, like you said. And I was like, yeah, let's like whip out the MP5, because the MP5, unlike your sniper rifle and your pistol, is not silenced. So you, at that point, everyone knows that you're there, and you're just going like gunning it from your little boat. And yeah, it's a really unique concept. Cool. It's very interesting. I think it's a very creative idea for a VR game. And apparently the demo that we played is around half a single mission in the full game. And it's going to be coming to Quest and Rift at sometime later on in the year. We don't have an exact release date just yet. But from what I played on the Quest, I was just like, I really want to play this on the Rift S to see what it looks like in that headset, because having seen the trailer, like I know that they say that the trailer is captured on Quest and it looks great, but then I think, well, I wonder what it looks like on the Rift. I'm looking forward to this one a lot.
Yeah, but this one, like the demo you have seen, is just a little bit of the experience, because when I played it at Gamescom, you could also, for example, blow up an entire boat with C4 or really go, big. The only concern I've seen so far, the reactions have been like, are you going to stay in that kayak the entire game? And how will that, be fun for the entire, ride? Like, I don't know, because I haven't played the full thing, but hopefully they found a way to make that interesting enough until the very last end, right? I don't know.
But like you said, from my playthrough, I got an award. I can't remember what it was now. But basically, you get different medals at the end of each level. So, whether you get 100% accuracy, for example, you don't kill anyone.
Shortest player ever.
Everyone you shoot, you just shoot them right in the balls.
Fluffiest Ewok in a kayak award. And basically, it promotes, replayability and trying different play styles going back. Whether that'll be fun to replay those levels again and again, doing different play styles. Again, like Nathie says, we don't know yet. But yeah, first impressions, I really like the idea of the concept of it. I think it's super creative. It's something I've never even considered before. And it's one of those games that I don't think you could it wouldn't work in any other way other than a VR game, you know?
I can tell you what is going to be very impressive the moment you jump from the Quest to the Rift S is that the water has more physics. So you know that I don't know what it is, like this mass that is floating in the water. I don't know how you call it. When you use your pedal and you kind of go through that, it makes that, like, it does that satisfying thing it would do in real life.
Yeah.
And like the physics in this title are top notch because let's say your boat is stuck somewhere, you can push yourself away with the pedal like you would do in real life. So
that's nice.
It works.
Because if you were to have like a lucid dream, the number one thing that would prove that you were actually in a kayak was pushing yourself off the side and having that physics kind of motion away from the edge.
And you can decide how fast you pedal. You can go super slow or real fast and then let the boat still, move its way around. It's great. As I said before, the only thing that I think is concerning is, will it be still fun for those amount of hours to sit in that kayak all the time? Maybe you're gonna like step out of the water with the kayak still onto your end, then you have feet under your kayak, and then you can run around.
At any point,
it becomes like this Doom-ass game, you know.
At any point in this demo, did you get to hit people with the actual like paddles? Did you ever get to take someone out? Because I would have loved that, like coming up alongside a pier, and then you just like take his legs out or something.
I don't think that's possible. I do, like, I'm not sure if I remember this correctly, but I do think you can grab an enemy and just pull them into the water, but I'm not so sure about that. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But it will be a different experience on PC for sure, because I in the end I could compare. There was much more going on physics-wise on PC than Quest, but still, like a year ago, they were so mysterious about what they were going to do with this game, and now we all know that they were going to launch it on both platforms. It's not coming to Steam or anything, because this is a game that has been made in collaboration with Oculus Studios, so you know what that means. But hey, Revive is still a thing, luckily, so if you still want to check it out, then I think you can.
Yeah, so that is Phantom Covert Ops, one to look forward to, coming to Quest and PC sometime in 2019.
Somewhere.
One to keep an eye on for definite, a bit like Wingman at the beginning. Put it on your wish list if you're interested in that sort of game. But finally, back by popular demand, it's Rowdy, making us all a little bit smarter, learning about VR, which is super interesting. Who knew that we could actually learn something from this podcast? So now it's time for
I didn't.
Rowdy Science. Take it away, dude.
Rowdy Science. Okay, well, today, I've asked in the previous episodes, like, what kind of stuff should we talk about as well? So if people have suggestions, be sure to drop them in the chat as well, and I'll go over them there. Is the presentation already on, Sim?
It's there.
All right, perfect. So today we're going to be talking about hearing in VR. So I'm going to take it off by starting, like, what is sound actually in general. So sound waves basically are vibrations in a medium. The exact definition that I could find, very complicated. Sound is defined as oscillation in pressure, stress, particle displacement, particle velocity, etc., propagated in a medium with internal forces, elastic or viscous, or the superposition of such propagated oscillation. That is what sound is.
Wow.
Very, very, very complex.
Wiggle.
Basically, this means that sound needs a medium to support it. So that being air, that being water. But it also means that sound cannot travel in, for example, a vacuum like space. So that's why they always say in space there is no sound.
No one can hear you scream.
No one can hear you scream, because you need to have a medium to support sound. Now, as humans, we can hear sound waves as distinct pitches between a frequency of about 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And sound waves above the 20 kilohertz are known as ultrasound, which we use a lot as well, especially in hospital settings. This is not perceptible by humans, and sound waves below 20 hertz are known as infrasound, which is a little bit less known. Now, for the perception of sound, sound has a number of characteristics. I've listed a few of them here. I think I listed all of the ones that I could find directly. But pitch is one of them that relates to frequency. We have duration, that is how long the sound is noticed. Loudness, the intensity of the sound. Then the next one, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but I'm going to do my best. I know how to pronounce it in Dutch and French. It's timbre. la timbre, is the quality of the sound
Timbre.
and the pre-conscious allocation of sonic identity. I'm sure Zim can correct me on
timbre.
Timbre? Oh, okay. So sonic texture, that relates to the number of sources and how these sources interact with each other. And a very important one, especially for virtual reality, is the spatial location that represents the cognitive placement of sound in an environment. So when we do this all unconsciously, of course, but when you hear a sound, you can almost pinpoint exactly with your eyes where that sound is coming from within the fraction of a second. And that is something that is very powerful, but also very, very complex. I'll get to that a little bit later. So we move on now. Now we kind of know what a sound is. I want to talk a little bit of like, how do we perceive that sound? So how do our ears basically work? Now, we actually don't hear with our ears. I'll get back to that later as well. But hearing in itself involves two different parts. We have a peripheral system that consists out of three parts: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. And then we also have the central hearing system, which consists out of the auditory nerve, and then a very complex pathway through the brainstem that leads all the way to the auditory cortex, where we then become aware of the sound. So we start off with the peripheral system. So we have the thing that we actually all know as our ear. It's only this part. It's called the pinna, and that is on each side of our head. That collects the sound waves that are around us. These sound waves are then being funneled into an ear canal, which makes the eardrum vibrate. And this is an extremely sensitive organ. After that, we go to the middle ear, which are the vibrations from the eardrum that move through a chain of tiny bones. These bones are called the ossicles. We have three different ones. We have the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. And these then transferred into the cochlea of the inner ear. And that is where the sound of the ear eventually ends up to. So as these stapes start to vibrate, we have fluids in the cochlea that start to move in a wave-like manner and then stimulate microscopically small hair cells. And these kind of look like this. So a hair cell in the cochlea is tuned to respond to different kind of sounds that is based on the pitch of the sound. So higher pitched sounds, they stimulate the hair cells in the lower part, while the low pitched sounds, they stimulate the hair cells in the upper part of the cochlea. And it kind of looks like this. So the hair cell then detects a sound, a nerve impulse is detected, and this travels all the way along to the auditory nerves, a very complex pathway through the brainstem, then arrives in the auditory cortex, and there it is converted into the thing that we then call sound. So It's very fair to say actually we don't hear with our ears at all. We actually hear with our brain, which is also why you have things like, for example, bone conduction. We talked about that, about the headphones that wanted to also use bone conductions to make you perceive sounds. But as long as you can stimulate the auditory nerve, that being with bone conduction or other kind of things, which I don't know about, you can actually perceive sounds in your brain and actually hear. A very interesting thing if you think about it from a psychological point of view, because if you say like, oh, we don't hear sounds, we hear with our brain, hearing voices get a completely different meaning, right? And the most amazing thing is that all of this happens in a tiny fraction of a second, almost instantaneously, that all that sound is being taken up, those vibrations comes, we get those nerve impulses, hits our brainstem, hits our auditory cortex, and we have sound produced. And to make it even more amazing, I have a small little video that I wanted to show. If you guys have the chance to watch it as well, you certainly should. So this video was recorded in the laboratory of Professor Jonathan Ashmore, and it shows the isolated guinea pig outer hair cell that has a cell patch electrode has been attached to, a very common technique in neuroscience. Now what they did was through a pipette, they delivered an alternating current signal that was injected, and then they observed the resulting motor response under a microscope. And then they also, that alternating current, they also attached that to a loudspeaker, and they synced that to the video, so we could also hear actually what the hair cell is hearing. I'm going to play the video now. For the audio listeners, just dance in your car or something, because you'll be in tune with our little hair cell. Here we go.
And Rowdy, just a quick check at this point, because so far we've only seen one slide. So is that correct? up
No,
this
that's
point?
not correct.
Okay, so something's not been working. We've just been seeing the single graphic.
Yeah, Rowdy wanted to show a graph somewhere, I think.
Wait, we've got some music.
You're only seeing one slide?
Yeah, it's just
We
gone
have seen
black.
one slide so far, yes.
Yeah.
Of two people sitting on a couch.
Yeah, sorry, that was all. I just thought you
Oh,
were getting.
And is it working now?
It's black now. Oh, we've got 3D sound spatialization up on.
And wait, I'll go over the slides real quick. So what is sound? Is that is on for me now?
Sound spatial, yeah. Spatialization.
3D sound spatialization is the title for this one.
That's strange. Okay, give me
Rowdy,
a moment.
Rowdy's just taking a minute to kind of work out.
Rowdy, just use your brain.
This is blowing my mind.
You don't need your ears. You don't need your ears.
It's like
Just the brain.
so every time I say something to Mike, like his brain is processing it like crazy.
Yeah, but then it just goes out the other ear because you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I put it up. What is sound
Other
now?
ear. It's not my ear, it's my brain actually. It's going
No,
out
I'm
of the
seeing
other side of my
OBS.
brain.
Oh, what is sound?
Okay, and if I switch to the next slide, do you see it there?
Give us a few seconds. Still on what is sound? Yes, perception of sound.
Perception of sound. Oh, Dad, I put so many cool pictures in there.
I knew you'd-
Anyway, perception of sound. I'll go through them real quick. How do our ears work? So that's where we are at now. This was the image of the of how our ear basically looks, and then we have the hair cell. It is working now, right? We see all
I see
the
picture of the
slides
ear.
now. Okay.
Oh
cool.
yeah, now we see a picture of the ear.
Yeah, and then we have the hair cells, and then how the auditory nerves basically receives the stimulus from the auditory channel. And then finally the video, which I've been talking about. It's rather impressive, I think. Hopefully it works. Let me know if it doesn't work.
One, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on, join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1.
So what you just saw was basically a dancing hair cell that actually dances up to the tunes of the music. I think that's one of the amazing things about doing science, that you can actually visualize something like that in a setting as well. That's really amazing. Nice song, right?
Good song. I remember
Good
it from what was that? It had the fawns in it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the thing now.
Happy Days?
Happy Days. Oh.
So then the most important thing for virtual reality is, of course, the 3D sound spatialization. We only have 2 ears, but we are able to locate sounds in a 3-dimensional space, which is rather strange because that doesn't make a lot of sense if we only have 2 ears. But our brains are very smart. Some are smarter, some are less smart, but okay. But what our brains basically do is we primarily localize sound based on the delay between the sound's arrival in both ears. So sound arrives in one ear earlier than it does in the other. They call that the interaural time difference, ITD. And the other way that we try to localize sound is based on the difference in sound level in the both ears. So we have interaural time difference and also interaural level difference. And the localization technique that we rely upon depends heavily on the frequency content of the actual signal. Now that is very good for like lateral kind of audio that is arriving in ears, but there's a much bigger problem coming from the front and the back. And we are all gamers. I'm sure we've all experienced that, but if it's very hard if you're playing a game with headphones to localize the sounds coming from the front or coming from the back, because they basically arrive in your ears in real life in the same time. And the way that our brain does that in real life is that all these sounds coming from the front and the back, and of course also from the lateral sides, they interact with our outer ears. They interact with our head, they interact with our neck or shoulders, and they get certain like colored modifications that help the brain then, because it's been trained to listen to like that, to help the brain solve that confusion. And this interaction then creates a response that is called the head-related transfer function. There's a lot of documentation that you can find on this in the Oculus developer, I call that the developer kit, and also the blog that they have. An enormous amount of information, because they kind of say this is now the linchpin of personalized immersive audio. If you can capture this is basically the audio equivalent of doing a fingerprint, because that transfer function will be unique to every single individual, dependent on the way their head is shaped, the way that their torso is shaped. Even though those grooves that we have in our ears, they matter for how we perceive sounds in terms of direction. So in terms of if we modify, I found a lot of studies on that where they like artificially modify the pinna of your ear, people will have a lot of trouble in pinpointing the direction of the sound. After a couple of weeks, usually that disappears because the brain gets adjusted, retrained, and then is able to like directly pinpoint it again.
I remember some scientists in Reservoir Dogs doing an experiment about that.
Yeah, I believe that is indeed a part in there. Yeah, and then we have another thing. So direction we talked about, ILD, ITD, and HRTF, the head-related transfer function, but that is only direction. Distance is another thing, and that comes from other cues, being loudness, initial time delay, the ratio of direct sound to reverberant sound, motion parallax, frequency attenuation, a lot of different cues that all make up not the direction, but the distance of the audio source that is coming to. And that brings us basically to the importance of sound in virtual reality. Now, our brains are mostly tuned for visual information, which makes sense because our visual system is extremely well developed. It offers us a lot of benefit, especially from an evolutionary perspective, because you need to be able to see prey, you need to be able to see a predator. So a visual system is very important for us. But unfortunately, that has led to sound often being a little bit underappreciated. People, for example, they don't realize often that there's music in a trailer or in a game up until the point that it's actually turned off. Then you go like, it's weird. It's like something is missing. Visual elements, they often tell a story, but sound is actually just as important, as it conveys a lot of underlying information that adds to the experience. If you want to try something, you should try watching a horror movie, but replace all of the scary music with like some kind of funny cartoon music. And I'm telling you, it's not going to be anything like the same experience. I put a picture of George Lucas here because he's a very big fan of sound in movies. He actually said one time that sound is about 50% of the experience. And with VR offering a new dimension of experience, this becomes even more important, as it is so crucial to get that immersiveness. Now, Oculus has been doing a lot of work on that. I have a picture here of Henry. I'll get back to that real soon. But binaural audio is something that we all kind of know about. It was first used actually in 1881, but it required the user or the listener to keep their head completely stationary, because as soon as you move your head, you get completely drawn out of the experience because the audio doesn't follow, of course, which our brains are used to do that. This implements inter-oral time difference, environmental reflections, filtering of the sound by your body, because they're recording those kind of things from something that it looks like a head or actually from the same kind of person. So binaural audio let us hear exactly where the sounds are coming from. So that's a really great thing. Most of the time in games, though, they use audio rendering engines rather than binaural audio, which makes perfect sense because then you can actually render the audio itself. Now, why did I put Henry here? I found a really cool piece on an Oculus blog of the developers from Henry that said with each character, they now have to think about how many total sources that they need to have and also where to place them in the character. So Henry, for example, he had 3 mono sources, one for his mouth, which was his voice, one for his torso, which were his hands, and also one for his feet, that were his footsteps. And also, all of these sounds have realistic fall-off curves that model loudness with distance in the real world, which is just a very good example to see like to what extent that developers go to have some convincing audio. You want to say something?
I never thought that when I see a character in a game, it's like, okay, it just makes sound. But I never thought like, oh yeah, wait, the head makes a sound and then the hands do something and the feet, like it has all its own purpose in the end. But that's like,
and they went even further in Henry, because one key to acoustically immersing someone in a space is understanding the way that the space itself affects the sound. Since most of the sound in the real world comes to you as reflections off of walls, off of floors, other surfaces, and they couldn't bake reverb into our sources since they would lose the sense of the sound bouncing off of surfaces around you, which is a very interesting concept. It's a completely new array of difficulties that come into a VR game, because users will be wanting to be immersed in some kind of environment, and you need that kind of stuff going there. Now, Oculus themselves have also an audio SDK that features a lot of tools and plugins, such as the following. They have spatialization, head tracking, audio propagation, volumetric source, near-field rendering, sound sources, sound transport time. A lot of information you can find on this in the SDK itself. So if you're interested in this, I'll leave some links at the end of the presentation as well. They don't have native support for things like the Doppler effect yet. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's basically that sound that moves towards you will sound different than sound that is moving away from you, because the waveforms, they will be compressed and they will expand. You hear that, for example, with an ambulance, when it's driving towards you and it passes you, it sounds different. They also don't have native support yet for directional sources or area sources, such as, for example, waterfalls or stuff like that. For listening devices, that's why we were talking about a little bit earlier. We basically have 4 different types. We have closed backs, open backs, earbuds, and in-ear monitors. As a general rule of thumb, the closed back headphones, they offer the most isolation and also bass response. But the closed construction may lead sometimes to discomfort and also leads to less accurate audio reproduction due to internal resonance. And also if they're closed on or over the ear, which is one of the reasons why I don't like them, they cause the pinnae, your ears themselves, to be a little bit more compressed and different, and therefore impacting the sound reproduction slightly. So it's actually a little bit a less ideal situation. The open back headphones, the ones that I personally use and I love the most, they are generally more accurate, they're more comfortable as well, but the negative downside of that is that they do not isolate listeners from the exterior environment and the broadcast to the surrounding environment as well. So they are more suitable for quiet areas devoted to a VR experience. So if you're a true VR enthusiast, you should get your own VR room and open back headphones, possibly in conjunction with a subwoofer if you really want that top-notch audio experience. The other 2, earbuds or in-ear monitors, I'm not even going to talk about them because they're not even worth mentioning in terms of immersiveness. And that brings us to the last slide. The difficult part that we basically have in VR is that, we hear sound in 3 dimensions. And it is very hard in virtual reality to spatialize that sound. We have things like the HRTF, but like I said, that is a unique audio fingerprint that we need to implement. Now, there's a lot of universities that are working on that and research labs. We have, for example, the VisiSonics Research Lab at the University of Maryland. They've made a sound booth that is covered in 256 tiny disc-shaped microphones. So what they do is they place the speakers in the ears. Very interesting, because that way they can capture the head-related transfer function from each individual specifically, because you get the torso, you get the head, you get the shape of the ears, all captured by that giant booth with all of those microphones. Because of course it works the other way around as well. You can have sound coming in that will be colored by all those modifications from your head, torso, and your ears, but also the sound that is going out of your ears, which is how they reason, is going to be colored the same way, just an inverse of that, to eventually reach that dome of microphones. So unlike other testing methods, which account for each possible location on one, this patented technology picks up all the audio cues simultaneously. They can currently do this in a lab, but they eventually want to set it up in every Best Buy. which would be very interesting to see.
Best
and
Buy.
another company in a Best Buy, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That you can basically now already, if you want, you can get the shape of your ears, like for those like earplugs, you can get that molded. That is also something like that. But imagine doing that for your headphones. Another company that we talked about before, OSIC, they were also working on this, and they claim to have integrated sensors that instantly calibrate to your head and torso. Do you remember those headphones?
Yep.
Do you also remember what happened to them?
No, they went bust, didn't they? Or they went bankrupt.
Yeah, exactly. So how they do it, I don't know. I said it back then as well. Like, I don't understand how they're going to do that with headphones. And apparently they didn't know either, because they went bankrupt and now refused to refund the 22,000 pre-orders of the 300 headphones. So $300 headphones. So nowadays, most HRTRF spatialization implementations use only one of a few public data sets available, and that will probably stay for a while like that, since we're not going to go to specialized audio like that yet. But getting an HRTF function just in general, from a general shape of hat, is already a long way, like a synthetic hat such as the Camera. Then I still have a couple of references and some other material. And if there are any questions still.
Well, yeah, I actually have one. Like you said that you, like right now they're recording sounds in, a special room. But in the future, would a computer be able to replicate sound like that? And just physics-wise?
Well, that's the difficult part, is that we still don't understand exactly what all impacts that kind of sound that is going there, because the difficult part of it is that each human is so specifically shaped that even like the shape of our ears is complex and is different. And if you change that, then the way that audio enters your ears will be different. So eventually we'll have to find a way to either personalize it or to model it, that you can do it at your own location, or like that you get a profile or something like that, or maybe a scan or something like that for the people who want to go to real extremes for the best kind of quality. Now, I do think that with computer simulations, you can get fairly close. It's that, I always say the first 80% is easy. It's the last 20% that will make it hard, So those last kind of fractions that really hit the nail on the head is going to be the hard part.
So I've got a quick question. What if you bypass the ears completely and go straight to the brains with some sort of like neural connection? Is that a possibility then, that you could somehow?
No, because what you miss then is all the colored modification from everything around us. So we have a sound source that is projecting audio, but it's not that audio that we're hearing. It's the audio reflection of our and the absorption that our body does, our head does, our ears, how it's reflected in there before it eventually hits even the ear canal, and then it goes to the auditory nerves.
I love that you've like highlighted here that you're listening with your whole body, so to speak, in addition to the mechanisms in your head that allow you to hear. And it only just underlines the experience, still my favorite auditory experience in VR, Subnautica, the Aurora, the big ship, when it explodes, if you're using like a shaker at the same time, and you can feel that up through your skeleton at the same time as you're hearing it in your head, that is an amazing journey. So if anyone who has those components is able to do that, it's well worth doing.
That's why I guess it makes it so immersive, because just like in real life, if an explosion happened, you would feel the vibrations through your body. So a sub pack or some sort of like butt shaker or whatever delivers that. What's it called?
Wiping.
What is it called?
It's the butt kicker. But no, any transducer.
Butt kick is something
transducer, Can we do a science episode on butt shakers, Rowdy?
So Hawkeye just said in the chat, now I want to go back into all the Quest games I played this past week and just listen.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is also, I think there's a real opportunity for developers there as well. Like if you make a VR game, invest in audio, because even in general gaming, it's important, but it's so much more important in virtual reality. So if you can do something special there, I'm telling you, a lot of people will find it very interesting and very nice, but they won't be able to pinpoint what it exactly is. Which is a very interesting concept. Which is also, we mentioned that a couple of times about Moss as well. And I'm still saying they did so many things very, very brilliantly. Like, for example, the beating heart that you can feel as well. It's such a nice addition to something that is, well, sounds very like simple and not really meaningless.
But it adds so much. Yeah, it does.
It's another immersive layer, isn't it? To that story stack, you know. And you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, the games that I remember are ones that have good audio, because it definitely brings you in a way that you're not expecting. The one that I can highlight from recently was Serious Sam. Hearing the echo of the screaming headless arm, bomb man coming at you is like this feeling of like terror that's just kind of impinging upon you at that time.
And another one of your favorites, Sim, Alien Isolation.
God damn it.
Sound very well. That was a terrifying experience. But yeah, I found that super fascinating, dude. I really appreciate you putting the time and effort into doing the research. Because I think it is really interesting to learn way more about, like, the components of VR that make VR such an incredible experience. And the science behind it is super fascinating. So if you've got a question in the chat, now's a good time. I'm just going to quickly wrap up the show times and we're going to say goodbye. But just a reminder, this is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. Also, check out the audio version on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Anchor. If you enjoy the show and you've learned something today, maybe you've developed a new brain cell, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe and leave us a nice review on iTunes, because that really helps out.
But really, hats off to you, Rowdy. Fantastic episode.
Thank you, man.
Even for someone with a background in engineering and stuff, you covered a lot of great information. So that, again, what Mike said, thank you for doing the research and sharing that with us. The community's going to love that.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
There was a question here from Meatball Saucy. It said, Nathie, can you give us details on what you were doing with the Leap Motion on your Quest?
No.
Triggering everyone.
well, that's a good one. No, I because you can now play Steam VR games on your Quest. I was like, well, maybe that could work, but right now it doesn't.
Okay.
That's all.
That was the second I tuned into your video, I was like, what the heck is he doing with the Leap Motion?
I wanted to. I was trying to use it, but at the moment it doesn't. But I do feel like it could. It could.
Yeah.
There's another one here for you, Mike. Mike from Nagod. Mike, how did you handle your Mantis, those headphones, and the video cord on the Rift S?
Right. So this is a good opportunity for me to explain this, because I had a few questions about this week as well on Reddit. So at the back of the headset here, so this is where is it? The standard clip is gone. I've actually taken it off now, but there is a clip that basically runs the wire from the headset, and it's mounted about here. Correct. It does a pretty poor job because it just drapes the cable over your shoulder. So what I did was I just used a small soft Velcro strap right at the back of the head strap to run the cable all the way to the back, so it runs down your back instead.
That's nice.
Out of your way. Super nice. Then with the Mantis, there's a trick to this, because a lot of people who bought the Mantis on my recommendation were like, you can't even get them on the strap. So you tricked us, Mike. You lied to us. Well, they're on there, so it happened. But basically, you need to open the strap all the way open, because this strap is actually tapered. And it's actually much narrower near the back of the headset. So you actually need to get this clipped over near the back as far as you can, and then slide it forward where it tapers wider. And that's how you get them on. You might have to unhook them slightly. They might become slightly unhooked within the plastic mechanism on the Mantis itself, but you can just clip them back in easy enough, and they're absolutely fine. But still, right now, this is the best audio solution I can find with the Rift S. Right. So hope that answers the question.
It's great. It's great to see people, trying out different headphones on the Rift S. Although it is sad that the community has to do it, but hey.
It is what it is. But yeah, we've had a super long episode, way longer
than
Jesus.
How long?
It's 8:20. Fucking hell.
2 hours and 20 minutes. So
Mike, end it quickly.
That is a wrap for this week. Thank you for everyone that's joined us this week in the chat and that are listening to this maybe after the fact. We hope you have a great week in VR. We'll be back next week. So tune in then for some more awesome VR news. And bye-bye for now. Take care. See you later.
I said it was going to be short.